Hello, my absolutely brilliant and beautiful astrology soulmates. It's me, Stormie Grace, and welcome to your horoscope for September of 2025, where this month, listen, we have been in the air of anticipation already with the eclipses. You know, for the last 6 weeks, many of us have been feeling it. You've been talking about it. You've been talking about it in your sessions with me. You've been talking about it in the comment section, in your astro groups. You can feel it. You know something's coming. The shift is right here, but you maybe can't even quite put your finger on it, or you've got your claw marks into a little something and you're trying to let go. You want to let go, but you just haven't quite been able to have the release. This is where I think we get to remember that as all of this energy is playing out, it is nothing but nature, but it is also a cosmic conspiracy to help us, achieve and walk through the lessons that we need to walk through. And this month is no different. With the eclipses happening this month, this is a month of course correction. The universe is shifting that terrain underneath our feet not to get us to stumble and to fall on our face. The universe is not watching and looking for us to just get flicked around and messed with all the time. It's nothing like that. Instead, it's a lot more in the space of getting us walking and breathing and trusting in the right direction. And that's exactly what these eclipses are going to be bringing to the table. Now, first and foremost, beautiful friends, before we say anything else about this month, I want you to please make sure that you click in my description box down below and grab your natal chart so that you can see where the aspects and the transits are happening in your chart. Because you're going to listen to me, you're going to listen to other beautiful astrologers who are putting out amazing astrology, but it's not your astrology. Right? And I want you to have the best. And the best astrology is your astrology. That's what's best for you. And you can only do that and know that by having the natal chart. That's where everything starts for us. So click in the description box down below and you can grab yours from me or go get a free one online, Cafe Astrology, Astro.com. One of these places has a chart for you, but grab it, hold it, get ready to mark that thing up, and even start to just gently understand what's happening. And if you happen to be one of our soulmates that's ready to go beyond just kind of having a vague idea, but you really want to speak the language of astrology, you want it coming out of you with fluency, that I would love to see you in my school at GAFA, the Grace Astrological Fluency Academy, where that is what we focus on, is we get you astrologically fluent, speaking, reading, writing the language of astrology with the astrofluency model. So I would love to see you over there if that is something that you are ready for. Now, there are going to be timestamps in the description box down below for all 12 signs, but I do encourage you to stick around a little bit for the general. Settle in with me. Let's make it a little tea date and see what the general has to offer, and then you can go find out what's happening based on your particular chart, okay? All right, so first of all, like I said, we've got the eclipse energy going. We were trying to walk in the right direction. The universe is just giving us some course corrections, but we want to know a couple important things about the eclipses. First of all, the eclipse that we're going to have, which is our full moon total lunar eclipse happening in Pisces on the 7th, this is a total eclipse. This one is going to be a complete reset. So the destiny you've been moving towards, people who've been coming your direction, places where you've needed to practice faith and you have to just flow towards it. Let your destiny kind of unfold in that way, right? Release some roles that are not for you anymore. You're getting a complete reset. You're going to see this entirely different in the next 6 months. This area of your life, wherever that Pisces energy is actually at in your chart, is going to look incredibly, incredibly different. And this is a space to remember that the way that you move with that and you grow with that and you flow with that is through some kind of faith, some kind of spiritual practice, okay? Now, the next eclipse that we're going to have that's going to be happening on the 21st is going to be a new moon solar eclipse. It's only a partial, but it's happening at 29 degrees of Virgo. And 29 degrees in astrology tells us a big story, because 29 degrees in astrology is considered an anaretic degree. It's critical. It's important. It is telling us that this is mastery. over this particular sign's lessons, energies, their perspectives, right? So it's like you're getting the final test of what's been going on in the sign of Virgo. So as we are working with this eclipse happening here, we first want to remember that the South Node has come through here already and has been working to help us in this final exam to look at where we've needed to let go of a lot of perfectionism. We've got to drop the over control, drop the performing, right? Let go of perfectionist, stop defining ourselves by exactly what we're doing, right? I'm only valuable if I'm productive. I'm only seen if I'm productive, right? The Virgo gifts here are to be of service. But as the nodes come back around, that South Node is saying you've been a little bit too much of service, or you've distorted what being of service actually is, and you've become in some way in your life not of service, but you have become a slave and a servant to this area in your life. And so where that South Node is helping is to pull these out and say, let's release that. We need to release that rigidity and move towards that North Node in Pisces energy. So here, as this new moon solar eclipse is happening, you are starting a cosmic reset where you get to go, okay, wow, I am seeing a little bit more where I can actually start to practice or continue to grow in my practice of releasing control, of realizing my job is to do just a little bit of the footwork and then let other people be helpful, or do a little bit of the footwork and then let the universe do the heavy lifting by practicing an actual trust in something that you can't see. It's a massive, massive energy. But the story here is faith needs to win the day, and trust, and micromanaging in whatever areas they have been is going to start to fall out, and you get to make this beautiful fresh start. Hello, my beautiful Aries friends, and welcome to your horoscope for September of 2025, where Aries this month, September opens the eclipse gates. And for you, this month is about shedding this quiet suffering and kind of rewriting your day-to-day systems from the inside out. So the transits this month, they're powerful. Some of them are subtle, some are not, but they're definitely fated no matter what. And they're working between your 12th and your 6th house axes this month. So we've got a lot to cover when we're talking about what this month has to offer for you. So let's jump in here, Aries, and talk about what is going on. Now, right at the beginning of the month on September 1st, we've got Saturn, who's already retrograde, sliding back into the vibration of Pisces. Now, this is going to light up your 12th house space. So let's talk about how these layers have shifted, because it's still a Saturn retrograde, but moving between the signs and moving between a sign where it was pushing forward and now one where it's coming back for a review, right? When we saw Saturn move into Aries and start to light up this first house space for you, many of you may have already felt that stirred pressure around your identity, around your body image, around leadership, around taking yourself more seriously, stepping into your next level of maturity, your legacy, right? It's almost the space where as Saturn moved into Aries and this first little dance it did, it was like the universe saying, it's time to grow up. It's time to own who you are. It's time to stop performing. It's time to start becoming who you are, like not thinking about it, but actually become who you are. You're ready. You know, it's a really big kind of energy, and there can be a lot of doubt with it. But this is where I think that this retrograde is great, because as Saturn now is retrograding back into Pisces, into that 12th house space, first of all, it pulls a bit of the pressure off of your outer life and it redirects you to the inner terrain, right? So it's almost this space where I think about, you're talking and you're kind of mid-sentence and you're about to have this personal breakthrough and you think you know where you're going, and that's that Saturn in Aries. And suddenly you're talking and mid-sentence you realize, oh, wait a minute, the root of this actually lies in something older, something deeper, something more unspoken. And it's really like you're sliding back to explore where did my bias against this, where did my thought process about this come from? And you're doing that inner terrain looking around. So I really think that this re-entry is more about finishing some unfinished kind of soul business that you have, maybe even karmic cleanup, but certainly some spiritual housekeeping, right? Because the old fear or that old dream that you have abandoned, the mental and emotional coping mechanisms, they are all up for review because Saturn in Aries has shown you now where you're going to go, but you might have some old hangups that are stopping you from stepping forward into something absolutely majestic for yourself. Now, as we get to the second, we're going to see that Mercury enters Virgo, coming into domicile, very, very comfortable, lighting up your sixth house space. The sixth house space has also had the South Node here. There's been plenty going on in this sixth house space. But as we have Mercury slide into Virgo, your mind gets razor sharp because Virgo is known for precision and discernment, right? So in our thinking and in how you're communicating, you're suddenly hyper aware of kind of the cracks in your daily routine, your wellness, your daily choices, as this lights up the sixth house space of daily routines, health and wellness, any kind of schedules or routines that you have. If you're a freelance person, this is going to apply to your day-to-day work. So where Mercury and Virgo can help you is that it's a great time to just edit your life. If I was going to choose an editor for my life, I'd be going to a Virgo for sure. So maybe that you realize that your calendar is actually working against your nervous system, right? Or you stop multitasking and just create a better structure. You're like, I just need a better structure here. Maybe you're tracking your sleep. Maybe you're tracking your food, whatever it is. The Mercury in Virgo time is a great time to reclaim some kind of mastery, precision, and discernment over your time and your energy. Now, September 6th, I think that it's a big deal. Not everybody agrees that the retrogrades are a big deal, but I follow them, especially if one of the professor planets is going retrograde. And we talk about the professor planets in my school. So if you're ready to learn astrology, I'd love to see you there. But we've got Uranus going retrograde in Gemini, and this will light up your third house space. Now, this retrograde, I do think is going to bring internal breakthroughs, but it's the internal breakthroughs around how you think, how you speak, how you learn. And because it's your third house, it's also about things in your environment and how you process information around the things in your environment or in your local community, right? In the spaces that you're steeped in. It's like, what information is getting in here and how are you processing it? It is absolutely in the third house space of siblings as well. You may be rethinking some things with your siblings, because if you realize during this retrograde that, first of all, it's not about drama. It's just not about drama. Uranus has recently stepped into Gemini, so you've been thrown a new perspective or a new way of thinking or being in the world or the world in general right now. And it's more about the disruption from the inside out that allows you to get in alignment with this Uranus and Gemini vibration, right? So the sudden awareness helps you have these break the mental loops that are going on there and have these breakthroughs. Now, when we get to the 7th, okay, we are in the eclipse zone. It's happening. We are on. So we've got a full moon, total lunar eclipse happening in Pisces, lighting up your 12th house space. And this is a major letting go portal because it's still the full moon that's going to ask you to end something, acknowledge something, or to make an adjustment. But here in the 12th house, this is ruling the space of the unconscious, the endings, the soul contracts, the things and the cords that we have connected to people or situations that we don't really see. And this eclipse wants to drain out things that have been quietly eroding your strength and your confidence and your faith in the universe, I think. So I don't think that for you at this particular eclipse is just a surface level cleanup. This is like soul detox time. And there's some uncomfortability that does come with that because you may be realizing that you've been numbing your emotions in some way, whether it's drugs, alcohol, busyness, gossip, any of these things can present themselves, And really what you may start to find out as this eclipse goes on is that, are you afraid of stillness? Because it forces you to feel, it forces you to confront whatever it is that you call a higher power. Maybe your dreams massively intensify at this time. You're crying unexpectedly. You feel called to solitude or silence. I need to go to a retreat. Like you're going to be looking for some kind of healing. This can be the absolute uncomfortability, I think, that can come with this particular eclipse, but there is a lot of hope with it as well. Because through the eclipse energy and over the next 6 months, as you're having these realizations, maybe you cancel commitments because you're like, I'm just really not aligned with that anymore. That's not true for me anymore. I can't just be busy to be numb. I can't keep coping in a certain way. This is a great time for meditation and prayer to start or to make its way back into your life, looking at how often you're sleeping and making sure that you're getting enough rest, making sure that your nervous system is in some kind of good shape, and the other thing that I think it's really good for that Aries can get caught up in, is letting go of this like helper, hero, rescuer complex. And because what it's done is made you abandon your own healing and your own perspective on the world, or maybe kept you small in some way. And now you're able to start letting it go and you have some cosmic energy to help. So it's okay if this eclipse feels really invisible on the surface for you. I'm going to tell you what, it's going to be massive in your body. You are going to be making some changes. That's what the 12th house does. It clears out what we can't carry forward, even if we do not have the words for it. Okay, as we continue on this month, on September 18th, we're going to see that Mercury enters now into the vibration of Libra. Mercury is just getting on. It is just getting on. Mercury, when it's moving forward, it is going. So this lights up your 7th house space. So your communication style shifts from being very discerning, maybe picky about all of the words, to a lot more diplomacy. We've got fairness. We want balance. We want to relate with this energy, right? But it's also Mercury in an air sign, so you could be thinking in a lot of different directions. But make no mistake that a big portion of the thinking that you're doing is shifting into the we instead of the me. So it is a good time for partnership conversations, contracts, negotiations, anything that makes or needs some kind of mutual decision making. This is great. So, if you and your partner, whether that's a business partner, your higher power, a business partner, you need to have some kind of talk very openly about what needs to change in your routines to have some kind of balance. This is a great time to do that. Now, it's also a time to really review and refine how you yourself are showing up in relationships, Aries. Are you talking? Are you just trying to win? Or are you actually listening as well? So it'll be a good time for that review. When we get to September 19th, we have Venus entering into Virgo, now lighting up your 6th house space as well. And love becomes practical. You want to attract practical things to you. You're like, this just needs to be practical, right? Because you want to feel useful and supported in really tangible ways. This is where Venus is attracting in acts of service. It's a transit that absolutely brings the sweetness of Venus to all of your routines, to your body, to the softness. It softens the perfectionism that we can have going on. But it's also, I think, makes it so that you practice receiving, right? Like you feel closer to someone this month, whether it's friend, lover, whatever that happens to be for you, because they've helped you clean and you allow yourself to receive it, or they've cooked a meal for you, or you realize they've been showing up consistently, right? So you begin to see these acts of service as expressions of devotion, and you can start receiving them and thus start offering them from a place that's really, really full. Your cup has been filled from both giving and receiving, and that's way better than trying to work from a position of burnout. Now, on the 21st, this is going to bring us to our new moon partial solar eclipse happening in Virgo, again, lighting up the 6th house space. So this is your major new beginning, and it's going to be a beginning in work, health, habits, your daily routines, in service. And at 29 degrees of Virgo, this eclipse is fated. Okay, 29 degrees is an anaretic degree. It is loaded with something that very clearly needs to end and begin right here. And there can be a lot of clarity around it because you're not just adjusting your routines here. You're initiating at this eclipse a new lifestyle. So you might realize that you've stayed in a job, a schedule, a dynamic, and it has been slowly eroding your mental health, right? So the eclipse pushes you to choose something different, even if it's uncomfortable. Maybe you've had prejudice against certain groupings of people or ideas or ideals, and you're finding out you have a bit more discernment, and so you're feeling uncomfortable, but you're ready to go in the new direction. And I think that again, there's a lot of hope here because it can also be the time that you commit to a new fitness or healing or wellness kind of practice. You are again creating better systems because listen, Venus really doesn't respond to chaos. Venus wants to bring you value through attracting things that have good systems. You build good systems and you can attract things to you without the chaos, right? So say yes. Say yes. I would encourage you for the next 6 months from September 21st on, say yes to receiving. Say yes to having acts of service, letting people help you, teach you, work, and working in a way that's a lot more aligned with your nervous system, right? These are going to be all things that account for helping you have the best health possible. Now, on September 22nd, we've got the Sun entering into Libra, and we've also got Mars entering into Scorpio. So both the 7th and the 8th houses get busy here on the 22nd as we're going to end the month. And the season at this point is really turning towards connections and things that heat up the depth of our intimacy and our connection and our power. Because Mars in Scorpio, it wants to stir transformation, right? But it wants to stir these transformation around shared resources, passion, vulnerability. Some of you may be taking action to get into therapy or something like that. And then meanwhile, back at the ranch, the Sun is in Libra, and it's really putting your partnership into focus. So again, maybe you're having some powerful conversations about money, sex, boundaries, abundance, death, debt, taxes, or there's a business or a romantic relationship for sure that can come to a more serious level. And it's doing it under a really nice little magnifying glass because it's getting examined really, really closely. It's not about surface level peace. It's going to be about building something really sustainable. And that has to come from vulnerability. That has to come from death. And it has to come from depth. Death and depth seem to be a theme that will be happening for you towards the end of the month. So September, Aries, I think invites you to maybe feel like you're healing a little bit in silence or you're having to go to those quiet places, but you're also rebuilding a much better structure that's going to work for you. You're being asked to surrender what's sabotaging you from the shadows, from that 12th house space, and begin a new cycle of practical self-care, of service and sacred routines and receiving that I think is, it lets the ghosts go. It lets the healing begin or continue for your greatest good. All right, my beautiful Aries friends, I hope you have a gorgeous September and look forward in October to your 2026 annual horoscopes coming out for you as well with your beautiful astrology team. I'll see you guys next time. Absolutely brilliant and beautiful Taurus friends, and welcome to your September 2025 horoscope, where before we even jump in, Taurus, please make sure that you have your own natal chart, because if you're listening to any kind of horoscopes online or you're reading it in books, it's all going to be general unless it was based specifically off of your chart, and we're not all using the same housing system. So it really is important that you have your own natal chart. So if you need one, click in my description box down below and grab one from me, or get one for free online. All right, Taurus, September, I think, is one of the most powerful months of the year for you. Now, there's 2 eclipses that are going to be lighting up both your social and your creative axes, okay? So this is a month that brings that shift for you from this people-pleasing and collective roles into a space that I think you're ready to embody because it's a heart truth for you. There's sacred joy. There's a lot of work around Venus and being able to receive, to be in that joy that I think you've been able to achieve at this point in the year, or you have the opportunity to do so. In September, you're being asked to release this outdated kind of group dynamic, these social obligations. What are they going to think of me? Friendships and connections that do not align anymore. And then you're stepping forward into this new version of you. And it's a very creative voice. The self-expression is beautiful. And for some of you, it may even just look like romance. And that doesn't have to be romance of another person. It totally can be, but a romancing your life, your being. All right, let's get in here and walk through it together. Now, starting at the beginning of the month, September 1st, we've got Saturn, who's been retrograde, re-entering into Pisces. So it's going to light back up your 11th house space. So let's rewind for just a second, because as Saturn entered into Aries earlier this year, it started testing you in this 12th house space, right? And this is the area of your subconscious, Taurus, those fears, that need for rest, behaviors that are your own undoing. They can lead there, right? And it's also around your spiritual practice. But now, as Saturn slides back into Pisces after you've had this little vision of where you're going to be able to go, where you're going to be able to own your mastery in this 12th house space, this slide back into Pisces is this returning to your karmic story around this 11th house, around your community, your dreams, Taurus, your legacy, and the way that you make or participate in social impact. So I really think that when we're talking about even coming into, we're setting our toes into September, this is like your final exam on your boundaries in groups. It's the final exam around the dreams that you have outgrown, over functioning in community areas and spaces that's not actually good for you. Now, what's uncomfortable, I think, about this, Taurus, is that you may realize that you've been spending time, first of all, with people or in spaces that actually drain you, or that you have stayed involved in some kind of organization or collective in some way out of an obligation, or out of fear of what are they going to think, or being alone, right? And so Saturn retrograding here is asking you, what does your soul actually need in terms of your groupings, your organizations, and your friendships that let you live with what you believe to be purpose? So right here at the beginning of the month, you may start to create a lot more intentional containers for your friendships. Maybe you're doing fewer group chats. You're having more meaningful one-on-one time, in your sessions or with people that you're spending time with. Whatever it is, this slide back is nothing, I think, but good, because it gives you an opportunity to restructure your community, your online presence, your relationship with technology. And, it's also a time, Taurus, where I think at this point in the year, 9 months in, right? 9 months, you gave birth to a version of yourself. But you're learning to lead in these group settings with boundaries instead of burnout. And I love that for you. All right, on the 2nd, we've got Mercury moving into Virgo, lighting up your 5th house space. And this is such a beautiful mental shift, because Mercury moving into your house of creativity, joy, pleasure, play, children, romance, this is going to help you get clarity on, first of all, what brings you pleasure, but then how you Mercury it. How do you express it with discernment and precision? Because that is the gift of Virgo, discernment and precision. So you might start organizing a creative project that you've been working on. You're writing a book. You're going to do a series. You're mapping out an art walk. I don't know, right? Maybe you're simply journaling or getting on the floor. You're being more playful in your life. For those of you, if you've been dating, this transit for you, it might have you thinking more clearly about what you want instead of following a pattern of being like a people pleaser or being really appeasing in certain situations. It's just a really beautiful transit to have a mental reset with your joy and with your discernment. I absolutely love it. Now, on the 6th, we've got Uranus stepping into retrograde in Gemini, of course, here in your second house. Now, Uranus just recently got off you. Okay, so congrats for making it through that. And as a fellow Taurus, I tip my hat to all of us. You have been shaken, not stirred, my friend, and it has left you radiant. That is all I know. It has left you different. But now Uranus is already shaking up your finances, your value system. And as it turns now inward in this retrograde, you are reviewing your relationship with that self-worth vibration, with your possessions and the things that you have, with money and how you use your talents to let money flow towards you. Do you let money flow towards you, or are you still struggling? So something that you may be realizing as Uranus makes this initial turn back in is that you've been attaching your value incorrectly. Maybe you're attaching your value, Taurus, to how much you earn, or you're hoarding things or resources and you're doing it out of fear, right? I'm not going to have enough. Or maybe you've been trying to I'm going to prove my worth through what I own, what I offer. Like, it's a little bit showy. But the retrograde here, I think, invites you to rewrite that internal economy and go, okay, hold on a minute. Let's try a completely different financial method. Or realize that you can live with a lot less and more discipline, and it makes you feel really grounded, right? Here you're learning that your value is not up for negotiation at all. So the real growth here, the real change and the real change in thinking for you comes from the root, not from any kind of negotiation. Now, on the 7th, we've got the full moon lunar eclipse happening in Pisces, again, lighting up your 11th house space. So we are on. Now, we've been in this energy for about 6 weeks, okay? This is an energy that you've likely been feeling. You've been feeling the shift for sure. The nodes have been working on us, and this is a total lunar eclipse. So it is a complete reset to how you've been thinking, moving, doing things. And this big release for you, Taurus, is in the realm of these friends, communities, old dreams and aspirations you had for yourselves, your social media, your networks, all of these places where we social. Now, under this eclipse and over the next 6 months, you may discover where you've been absolutely molding yourself to fit a group that no longer is a home for you, right? Or you've been staying attached to some kind of vision for your future, but it was never really yours. And with this time and this slow layers of peeling away from it and getting spiritual clarity, you're going, wait, that's not mine. Maybe you have a vision and it belonged to your parents, to your industry, to a past version of yourself, but you're starting to realize it. And now the nice part and the hopeful part, I think, is that you may start to let go of this, right? It could bring you a deep realization over this next 6 months that you're like, I don't need to be everything for everyone. And releasing that pressure, I think that what you authentically have to offer and who you really are can rise, and it will naturally put you in the position to question, do I need to let go of a friendship or step back from some kind of social obligation because it is just really not doing it, right? So I'm looking forward, Taurus, to hearing how this is resonating with you because you're a Venusian energy. Value is such a big word for you, and how you're valuing yourself as you're traveling this journey, it's big to have these discoveries. Okay, on the 18th, Mercury is going to move into Libra. Mercury just gets on with it, right? Like when Mercury is direct, Mercury is going. It's just doing what it's doing. Okay, so Mercury here in Libra lights up your 6th house space. So now your focus turns to the details of the balance of your daily life. Home, family, real estate, property, the way that you deal with those things in a daily way. It's not the real estate, it's not the property, it's how you deal in those things in a daily way. Your health, how you speak to yourself, your mental health and wellness, right? So at this point in the month, you're balancing work and wellness. And you're finding new ways, Taurus, to communicate about your job, at your job. Maybe you're streamlining things between how you work, how much off time you have from working, and then being in the workday. This is a great transit to initiate because Libra is a cardinal energy. So initiate a conversation about your workload. Ask for support where you need it. Go back to your mercurial things like your calendar and rework that, right? Because what you maybe are exploring, this is a very mental energy, is how mental harmony is affecting your body, right? There's a practice of daily mindfulness, journaling, setting boundaries, putting limits on consumption of other things that are not your own breath that you are maybe looking at here. On the 19th, we've got Venus now entering into Virgo, lighting up your 5th house space. And I love this because it's your ruling planet, first of all, at the space of a comfortable earth sign, just like yourself. So you're like, Venus, I get what we're doing here. And with this transit, I think that you feel in your heart and in your body, right? Like you come back to it. You feel the joy or the lack of joy, or maybe where you're holding a space in your body that you're like, this is really tense. I don't have joy over here, right? Because Virgo is going to bring love to the little things, the details, but it gets very practical. You know, romancing your life with Venus, attracting things into your life comes in a grounded way. It's sensual, it's thoughtful, it's practical. So with this transit, something that you can think about on your growth streak that you've got going here is, Taurus, how can you find joy in creating creative rituals in your life? Just for the joy of it. Is it dancing? Is it baking? Are you a DJ and you create productivity playlists, right? Like, what do you do? If you're dating, maybe you're starting to feel and call in people to you who are more helpful, they're more health conscious, or they're kind in these ways that are subtle, because Virgo's not overt always in its helpfulness. If you're in a long-term partnership, right, maybe you're starting to show a little bit more love by fixing something. You're fixing something you didn't really know it was broken, but you learn that this small act of service you did has just changed the course of your relationship. Now, on the 21st, we've got the new moon, partial solar eclipse, and this one is in Virgo as well. So you do get there's a little bit going on in the Virgo energy. The 5th house is busy, right? This is the creative space. So this is your new beginning, Taurus, over this next 6 months in creativity, love, joy, pleasure, play. It's also a new beginning for your children, and it's fated. Arriving at 29 degrees of Virgo. This is the last degree. It's a potent and really powerful degree, right? So this is not like a regular new moon, not only because it's an eclipse, but because of that 29 degree. It means you're pulling together everything that you have learned. And it's an invitation to claim it. Claim the joy. Claim the joy, claim the ease, claim the receptivity, learning and letting people lavish you with acts of service because you forgot that you deserve it, maybe, right? Maybe you realize during this eclipse and over this next 6 months that you've been making choices that are safe. They're safe. They're not inspired. That you've been pushing down joy and taking on more responsibility because this is where you're getting some kind of value, and it's been hard to receive. Or maybe you've been hiding one of your creative gifts or something that you really think or feel or believe, and it's out of fear. It's out of fear of what will people think. This is not good enough. Maybe I'll be alone if I tell this truth, right? But I think that what also happens, because this is that new moon time, is you start going to your joy again. You're writing again. You enroll in that dance class. You say yes to something that your children are interested in. You say yes to loving in a way that feels aligned. You start living your joy. And even if it's in baby steps, it's not just thinking about it anymore. It's living it. It's an invitation to live it. More than anything, I think that this eclipse, beautiful Taurus, is a reminder that you are a Venusian. Pleasure is not frivolous. It is necessary for your journey and for your soul's healing. Now, as we're going to close out the month on the 22nd, we've got the sun entering into the vibration of Libra. Okay, again, this is lighting up this brilliant sixth house space. And we've also got Mars entering into the vibration of Scorpio at the end of the month, so lighting up that seventh house space. And Mars in Scorpio is all about stirring the transformation, right? It's stirring that transformation, but it's around relationships. It is around these relationships. Maybe there's something more vulnerable coming up in your relationships, but the sun moving into the vibration of Libra is going to want balance in how you engage that on a daily basis. You want peace in your schedule, peace, flow in your work tasks, partnerships that support your vulnerability, your intimacy, your health, your wellness. So I'm telling you, Taurus, you may change your work schedule as we're coming to the end of September and over this next 6 months because you need to honor your body's needs. You're hearing it. Maybe you introduce some kind of new daily habit that is really restorative to you, right? Or you call on people and you let them be of service to you. You receive from them. You receive mentorship. You receive help from a VA. You receive practical support. Whatever it is, Taurus, this is a month where I think that you can release the crowd, return to your own core. With the 11th house eclipse, you know, that pressure to belong or what are they going to think? And then that 5th house eclipse, you're like, no, I need to reclaim myself, my joy, my own soul-fed creativity. This is where I think the work is at. And you don't need to earn fun. You don't need to earn joy. You don't need to earn beauty. You don't need to apologize for choosing your own creative being. So this month, I hope that you play. I hope that you express. I hope that you allow pleasure to flow to you and then you accept it with open arms and say, yes, thank you. All right, my beautiful Taurus friends, have a gorgeous month. Let me know how it goes in the comment section down below. Beautiful Gemini friends, and welcome to your horoscope for September of 2025. First things first, Gemini, make sure you have your own natal chart while you are listening to what's going down in the month. Now, if you don't have one, you can click in the description box down below and get one from me. Go get one free online, whatever you need to do to make sure that you can really personalize the horoscope, because whether you're listening to me or someone else, even if it really resonates, it's general. And I want you to have the best astrology, and the best astrology is your astrology. All right, Gemini friends, September is a month of redirection, with the eclipses highlighting both this public and private axes in your chart. It's definitely showing signs of, okay, this is the season of release, where you're releasing pressure around your work, your reputation, something in your career path, how you've been performing. And instead, you're able to step into a new beginning that's a lot more rooted in your relationship to concepts, I think, that are about home and safety and a lot more emotional truth. Now, to be clear, I don't think that this month is at all about perfecting your image, right? It's about healing foundations and the concepts of healing foundations so that you can build something that is real, that is organized, and feels like it's got some structure to it. So let's walk through the month and see what the month has to offer. Right at the beginning on the 1st, we've got Saturn, who's already retrograde, re-entering into the vibration of Pisces, which will light up your 10th house space. Now, you may have already felt it as Saturn took this dip, and it really was a dip. It just came forward a little bit into Aries earlier this year. And it was asking you and putting you into a position to have to confront things about your social role. Who do we call you in public? What's your network? How are you leading? What are you doing for work? And now, as Saturn is going to slide back and come back to this 10th house of career, visibility, the direction, right? It's giving you one final round of lessons. It's almost as if this retrograde says, okay, before you build something big and you really take it where it's possible for you to go, we need to make sure that your internal blueprint is really strong and really yours. It's based off of something you know and you have. So for some of you, you may realize that truly you have been chasing a version of success that truly has belonged to someone else, your parents, your past, a story of what achievement looks like, right? Maybe you have felt some public pressure, but you're doing the things in public and it's not translating internally. Where I think there's a lot of hope with this particular retrograde as it comes back is it's a chance for you to redefine this for yourself. What does leadership look like? Rebuild your reputation, but you're rebuilding it now from the inside out because you've already seen even a taste of what's possible. Now you're clear as to what needs to be adjusting, whether it's scaling back something that you've been doing, choosing a slower business model. Maybe there's something that you know will give you that promotion and take you to the next level, but you have to slow down in order to go back and get it. Saturn is here to help you build it, but you can only build it if it's honestly in alignment right now. All right, on the 2nd, we've got Mercury shifting into the vibration of Virgo. Now, while you and Virgo share a ruling planet Mercury, you do it very differently. Now, as Mercury is here in Virgo, it's going to light up your 4th house space. So your mind, your communication is going to turn more to your emotional world. It's going to turn to the home environment, home, family, real estate, property, inner stability. And Mercury here is going to help you see where you need some clarity in these areas. Maybe it's about boundaries. It's Virgo energy, so I tend to think a lot about better organization, right? We need a system, we need a structure, because the gift of Virgo is discernment, and it's the kind of discernment that allows the structure, the very earthy structure that you build, to bring peace into your life, right? It brings a flow. So maybe you finally have this conversation you need to have with your family, your landlord, or something like that. You could be organizing your space. And I hope that when you organize your space, you do something like make it feel sacred. So that as you're in your own space day to day, the small acts of living that you're taking on feel sacred to you, right? It's a really beautiful energy. On the 6th, we've now got Uranus going retrograde in Gemini. And as you know, friend, it has recently come into your sign. And so this is a big one. This is a big energy. You got a little taste. You got you got some of it. But now as it retrogrades in your sign, first of all, remember that where it started to shake you up and shake you out of the ruts and take you in a different direction or allow you to see yourself differently, you can continue to know that you're going to be working on what's already come in. Now it's time to review it and kind of tighten that up. So expect sudden insights. Expect, it's like you have an identity upgrade. You know what I mean? You're able to see yourself differently. And it comes from the fact that you've had this internal kind of rebellion, or revolution is maybe a better word. And so this personal shift is taking you into the world to move through the world quite differently. Now, for some of you, depending on the extent of how hard the initial shakeup of Uranus coming into this Gemini energy has been for you, you may realize that you have genuinely been performing a version of yourself to stay likable, to stay unthreatening, to hold an old story, something like that. Or maybe because it is Uranian energy, you've been stuck. Right? I'm stuck in this restlessness and I don't feel like I have a direction. I'm reinventing everything, but I'm actually avoiding the root of the issue. So during the retrograde, where I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth, is that maybe you do something simple, like start dressing like the version of you that you want to take out into the world, right? That one simple thing can help you show up with more honesty. Showing up with more honesty is also a great way to show up more honestly, right? You begin to say, okay, this is who I am now. And then there's no apology at the end of it. Because Uranus is waking up the part of you that is really done being palatable, okay? As we get to the 7th, we've got the full moon total lunar eclipse happening here in Pisces, lighting up your 10th house space. And this is a massive emotional ending around career, your reputation, your public identity, some kind of long-term goal that you have had for yourself. And Pisces here, I think, softens your ambition. And it asks you the question in a softer way that is, what are you sacrificing, Gemini, in the name of success? And I am saying success in quotes. So while the full moon here over the next 6 months is going to continue to ask you to end something, acknowledge something, or to make an adjustment, pivot your path so that you can be going the right direction, you might have to face some uncomfortable things as well. And it's like you might be in the space of getting absolutely burnt out or being in a place of complete disillusionment, right? Maybe there is a leadership role and you've still been holding onto it and it just doesn't fit anymore. Or you realize you want it to be, even if it's in your own home, you've wanted to be more recognized than aligned, right? Now, the great part of this is that you can release over this next 6 months the need to prove yourself. You know, if there's a title, a project, an expectation, expectations are premeditated resentments, you get to walk away from it feeling lighter, not feeling like a failure, feeling like you have more freedom. You know, this retrograde energy that is going to take us into 2026 is really you making room for more of you to be seen. Okay, on the 18th, Mercury has said, I am done with that Virgo. Let me move on. And it's moved into the vibration of Libra, lighting up your 5th house space. This is the place of joy, pleasure, play. Now your mind is coming to this space of creativity, beauty, balance. It's a great time while Mercury is here for writing, teaching, dating, expressing yourself in some way that's more Venusian, having conversations that, you're expressing how you feel with someone, but you're doing it in a very joyful way. And you also want to hear what they have to say. It's very playful. Now, also in the 5th house space, these are many, many conversations around children. Goodness knows it's the beginning of the school year, so you could be doing appointments. You're reconnecting with the school, the teachers. You're signing them up for the art class, whatever it is that's happening at the beginning of the year for you. On the 19th, we've got Venus now entering the vibration of Virgo, lighting up your 4th house space. And where Venus goes, it's attracting. But first, it brings in a healing to your home life, a healing to those emotional roots. Love here, attraction here becomes nurturing. It becomes simple. It becomes, I want to beautify the space. So maybe you do decide to redecorate. You build an altar. You buy those bed sheets that you like. Did you guys know they have these bed sheets that you zip on and off the bed? Like you just zip them on. I had no idea about that. Either way, what makes your space feel nurturing or like you're getting a hug? Your family relationships here or relationships with your mother can also be softened under this energy, especially, if you lead more like a Virgo, lead with service. How can I genuinely be of service to this? Lead with some humility. Venus can put a nice little salve right on there. Now, I want to say this piece too, because I think it's really important. Gemini, you have also got to let people be of service to you. You've got to be in your receptive energy. And how do you practice that? What's your relationship with receiving? Because I promise you, if you cannot receive, you are actively creating a chaos in your life. So practice that this month as well. Now, on the 21st, we've got our next eclipse energy, and it's a new moon partial solar eclipse happening here in Virgo, lighting up that 4th house space. So this is your pretty impactful new beginning. Now it's not a complete reset. It's not a complete restart, but your inner world is getting an opportunity to view things differently. Now, this eclipse is happening at 29 degrees of Virgo. So it's karmic and it is urgent. Okay. 29 degrees is a really pivotal degree for us in astrology. It wants to help you create real safety, real peace, real emotional restoration. But there is always a bit of challenge that comes, right? Is that you may realize your current home, a living situation, some kind of emotional pattern is unsustainable. This could also be, Gemini, that you're helping other people realize this about their lives. And so it brings up the fear of instability, the sense of displacement. But it's also opening a door that supports you in a different way. It's going to support your nervous system in a different way. So I would highly invite you at this eclipse and over the next 6 months to start looking for a new home. Start looking for a new home. And even if that means you stay in the exact same physical space that you live? How can you create a new home? Set the emotional boundaries with family, reconnect with what makes you feel rooted, whether it be your ancestors or certain practices in your home, because you have already begun building a foundation that actually feeds you. Now I think that the eclipse comes in and says, listen, you do not have to just survive where you are. You can thrive and you can choose to start again, whatever that needs to look like. As we get to the 22nd, we're going to get ready to wind out the month. We have first the sun moving into the vibration of Libra, lighting up your 5th house space. And we've also got Mars entering into Scorpio, lighting up your 6th house space. So as the sun moves here into your house of joy, pleasure, and play, it's bringing light, heat, life, and vitality, while Mars in Scorpio is in domicile, but it's activating that 6th house of daily routines, work, mental health, and wellness. And when I say daily routines, I also mean if you have a job, how do you do that job on a day-to-day basis? Your schedule, it's the tiny things that you do in a day-to-day way. Now, I think that the combination of these two energies, especially being neighbors, is really nice for you because it's reminding you that your pleasure and the purpose of your being, they can coexist. You know what I mean? It's like, so maybe you develop some kind of routine because you've got to have some kind of routine and it makes you feel balanced, but it also makes you feel really deeply inspired to be in your life. Or you commit to some kind of new fitness routine and it's quite vulnerable, right? Scorpio is over here. It's quite vulnerable. But then you also are working it out in a way that it feels like it's more of a ritual that just supports the way that you're living. I can tell you that Mars in the 6th is definitely saying to yourself that your discipline can be sacred, because from it, the habits that you have will become really, really healing. And again, Gemini, some of you may be helping other people to understand and learn these lessons in their own lives because you've already sorted that out. All right, beautiful Geminis, you're definitely closing a chapter on how you've been seen. We're opening this door around a way that you're deeply ready, I think, to be held in the world. So I just want to remind you this month that you are not your achievements. You're not the performance. You're just your softening. Practice that receptivity and let yourself come home to yourself. And then you can reveal that to all of us because we cannot wait to see you. All right, my beautiful Geminis, have a gorgeous month. I hope you will share it with me in the comment section down below. Beautiful Cancerian friends, and welcome to your horoscope for September of 2025. We're Cancer, first things first. Please make sure while you are listening to any general horoscope, you make sure that you have got your own natal chart, because the best astrology is your astrology. And no matter what is happening, that you're listening to a general horoscope, you're reading a book, unless it's specifically designed for your chart, it's going to be general. And I just want you to have the very best. So make sure you get your chart so you can see where this is actually happening for you in your chart. All right, Cancer, this month, I love it because I think there's a revision or a rewriting to your worldview and how you connect with your voice in the world. Like you have something else to say because your perspective has been shifted. Now, we're also going to have obviously 2 very powerful eclipses this month, and then that cascades into the transits that are happening that also are helping to shift this belief and communication axes. So Cancer, I do want to say if there's been some space where you've kind of been doubting your voice a little bit, or you've been questioning, okay, is this the truth? Is this my truth? Or just having this feeling or this sense that you don't fit inside of ideas that you once really lived by. They might have even been mantras for years. This is the month that I think breaks those things open. All right, Cancer, let's jump in here and take a look around. So right here at the beginning of the month on the 1st, we've got Saturn, who's already retrograde, sliding back into the vibration of Pisces, lighting up this 9th house space. Now, Saturn moving back into the 9th house is asking us for this final revision of this belief system, of this worldview, right? Because earlier in the year, Saturn shifted into just these early degrees of Aries, fellow cardinal energy, and it started to light up your 10th house space. So you were getting this nudge, right? It was like, oh, there's some clarity coming around what you're going to do for work, maybe shifts coming in work, the title or the reputation we're going to call you in public. But now, as Saturn is pulling back to finish work in this 9th house space, it's going, hold on, what's the internal compass and belief system that you're going to go out and build that new reputation with? So this is kind of your last chance to edit your foundational philosophies that really underwrite everything that you believe is success. Now, for many of you too, this can look very practical, like, yes, the worldview is changing, but some of you may be going back to foreign lands that you haven't been in a while. You're going back to a legal case. You're going back to a training or some sense of education. Whatever it is, I think that there's a bit of an uncomfortable truth that does get realized. And it's, first of all, that you've been living with some kind of outdated belief, right? That a philosophy or a spiritual teaching that you really clung to, it just doesn't fit anymore. Or maybe you're finding that there's some fear that's kept you from actually going ahead and finishing that degree, sharing your voice, speaking, publishing, teaching the class, publishing that podcast, whatever it is. But the beautiful hope of this is that you're going to take this Saturn retrograde time and just go back, just review, write that book. Re-enroll in school. Stop shaming yourself for not knowing everything. Saturn is here in this retrograde saying it is not about having the answers. It's simply about owning your process of becoming this next version of wise. I love it. All right, here on the 2nd, we've got Mercury shifting into Virgo where it is in home court, so lighting up your 3rd house space. Now, Mercury is bringing a lot of mental clarity and discernment, which is the gift of Virgo, to your thinking, your speaking, your writing, your daily networks, how you're connecting with them, right? So this is a perfect time during this transit that we're going to have Mercury here for just a few weeks, because Mercury will shift on the 18th and get into Libra. But while it's here, refine your message. You gone ahead and started rewriting that book. You might edit that book. You might edit the website. You might rethink about how you speak to your clients, how you speak to your siblings, whatever it is, right? This is a place where you want your words to be very Virgo, useful, clear, of service, not fluffy and filling the space. Okay, Cancer? All right, on the 6th, we've got Uranus, who's recently moved into Gemini, stepping into its retrograde, meaning now we've got all of the retrogrades or all of the outer planets in retrograde. But this particular retrograde for you is in the 12th house. So this is an awakening in a subconscious space, because Uranus in your 12th house is already shaking up everything beneath the surface. It's old dreams, old spiritual blocks, old health blocks. If you've had any problems with addiction or illness, it's stirring that up. It's stirring up creativity, mental clutter, things that have been done in the dark. It's all getting spun up right now. So you may realize that your inner voice that you have, your knowing, your intuition, some piece of creativity is absolutely being drowned out by fear or mental noise. Okay, that you've been secretly sabotaging something in your life, your own success, your relationship, by procrastinating or by avoiding just being still. So now what this gives you an opportunity well until 2026 to do with this retrograde is start that meditation practice. Start a walking meditation if you're the kind of energy that needs to be moving while you meditate. Listen to your intuition, hear it, and then take the step. And that's how you develop the trust. Start recording in that dream journal. And over time, you see the pattern. It starts giving you answers. Go back to that 12-step meeting. Go back to treating that medical situation that's been coming up. Cut a toxic tie with someone who only exist in your thoughts, but they're not actually real in your reality. Now, when we get to the 7th, we're in this full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, again, lighting up your 9th house space, but this is a total lunar eclipse. So this is a complete and utter reset. This for you, Cancer, is the end of a belief cycle. The 9th house rules that publishing, marketing, broadcasting, travel, all the things that I love, right? But it's also truth, philosophy, and faith. It's the bigger picture of what you believe and then how you live off of that. So something truly in your worldview is falling away because it's time to live a new story. So you might feel, or in this last 6 weeks, have it kicked up a little bit more that you're feeling a bit disillusioned with a personal dogma, some kind of religion, a teacher that you once loved. Maybe you thought you knew your path, you knew what you were going to do, and it's no longer real for you. This can feel like a spiritual identity crisis. We can't minimize this. This can get very big, very fast, right? Maybe you found out you really have to do technology. You've got to come online. Now, the hope, I think, and the gift with this eclipse over the next 6 months as you're experiencing this energy is that you might decide to stop waiting to be or feel ready and just submit your work, submit that paper, put it out there, put that podcast out there, say that you believe in a different faith, you change a major at school, you book that trip, you publish the thing, you start reading and receiving information with your heart open again. The thing is that over the next 6 months, I think you're going to find out that besides for something very practical, you don't need a map anymore. You don't need to be told what to do. You need to trust that internal compass of yours. All right, on the 18th, Mercury has moved on. It's done with Virgo. It's like, thank you very much. Loved the visit. And it moves on now to Libra, lighting up your 4th house space of home, family, real estate, property. So here, as Mercury comes into Libra, communication softens and it deepens, but in your home, in your private life, in your own internal foundations, I hope in your nervous system. So now is the time during this transit that will take us through the rest of September where you can really speak from the heart. And I think that you can also listen more carefully, more intently to yourself, to others. Maybe you're reconnecting with a family member for whatever reason, and you're listening more. You're writing about your childhood. You are affirming yourself and others in your living space, right? You're verbally telling them, this is what I need. I want to hear what you need. What do we want this home to feel like when we're in it? Something like that, right? Now, I also think that this is a great time for journaling, all those things. But I think that when we're talking about the 4th house, we're talking about the roots. And when we're going to get to the roots, we typically need some kind of therapy, counselor, or a guide to walk with us and shine the light at the places and as we work through the rooting system. So it's a great time for that. On the 19th, Venus is going to enter into Virgo, lighting up that 3rd house space. Now, Venus brings a sweetness and a healing to the way that we communicate, the things that we are communicating, and Venus is attracting in. So you may be craving at this point in the month, Cancer. You're like, I want honesty. I want softness. I want kindness in how I speak to people and how they speak to me, because this is how it feels in my body when I receive that softness, right? Venus is a receiving energy. So maybe it's the time of the month where you create what you want to experience. So you write a really heartfelt note, or you share some kind words with someone, or how you answer a text to someone carries more weight because it's how you would also like to be responded to. And this, it carries more weight to you because it's like, wow, that was really impactful. And it seems like such a small thing. Maybe you're going to get into writing something, and it's a writing rhythm. Venus wants rhythm and music and movement, and that's how it attracts in what it wants, right? So you're getting into a writing or a reading or a building rhythm, but it feels alive. It feels like there's love there. So let me know what you do with that Venusian transit. I can't wait to hear, because just a couple days later on the 21st, we've got a new moon partial solar eclipse happening in Virgo, and this will light up that 3rd house space. Now, this is your karmic new beginning in how you speak, how you learn, how you write, how you express yourself. It's time to plant your seeds of intention for your true voice to emerge. And it doesn't mean that a voice that you had before wasn't true. It just means, like, what are you now? Who are you now? How do you speak? What's the cadence? What's the texture of your voice? So if you are starting to realize that your communication style has genuinely been shaped by some kind of fear, or saying what's safe instead of what's real, you've silenced yourself. You've done that to avoid criticism or to protect other people's feelings so you don't have to be uncomfortable. But the work in the new beginning that this eclipse offers is to speak. Speak out on a platform, speak out. Say the thing that once scared you, as long as it's what's really true for you. Say the hard thing gently, clearly, lovingly, discerningly, because the eclipse says your voice is a sacred tool. You have to use it for devotion. Oh, such a big time with that energy. And it's going to be playing out for 6 months for you to work on that and grow in that and to build in that. I think that's amazing. Now, when we get to the 22nd, it's a bit of a busy day. First of all, we've got the sun shifting into the vibration of Libra, going to light up that 4th house space for you. We're also going to see that Mars is going to enter into Scorpio in the 5th house. So the sun lighting up that place of the home, while Mars is activating this creative, romantic, joyful fire over here. It's an invitation to really nourish your emotional world and let that passion, let the vulnerability of where you really want to be able to sink into your home and into your joy and into relationships with your children or things around children, let that really be the guide and let it burn pretty bright, right? So maybe you're going to redecorate. Or maybe for some of you, the children have gone off to college or to school or to their next adventure. Or maybe you're bringing a child into the new adventure of your home. And this brings house guests. This brings some kind of celebration or party. Maybe you are using this energy and in your own space, you're starting to feel more playful, more inspired, more sexual, more connected to your hips, your own sexuality. And that fire and that water being expressed creatively or in a romantic way is also lighting you up again. Now, Mars is still Mars. If there are challenges to this that need to be overcome, Mars is going to be setting the stage to take that on, but the sun does want a bit of balance. It's Venus and Mars kind of dance at the end of the month, so there's a fair amount of balance you can actually work with. All right, beautiful, beautiful Cancerian friends. I think that this month shows you, one, that you're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to change your entire worldview. And you might even actually be being required to do that and surrender into an old truth that's becoming known again. You're just allowed to drop these beliefs that don't hold you anymore. And your voice is sacred. So speak, ask, create, and begin this month. And let me know how it goes for you in the comment section down below. Bye, Cancer. Absolutely beautiful, Leo friends, and welcome to your horoscope for September of 2025. And Leo, before we even jump in, please make sure, my beautiful friends, that you have your own natal chart out as you are listening to this or as you go back to listen to it. No matter what book you're reading, no matter which person's horoscope you are listening to, it's going to be general. It is just going to be general unless they're actually doing it against your chart. So I want you to have your chart so that you get the very best astrology, because the best astrology is your astrology, all right? Okay, beautiful Leo friends, September is a month of worth reclamation, and it's pretty radical, as a matter of fact. Now, we've got eclipses that are going to be happening in your money and shared resources or money and power dynamic axes in those 2nd and 8th houses. So that means that there are big shifts in how you relate to value, to intimacy, to control, vulnerability, all of those things. So it really says to me, Leo, that this is a time to let go of what you owe others. And that O is in quotes, okay? Whether that be emotionally, financially, energetically. It's more this month about having the space to rebuild your own sense of worth, but from the inside out. Now, let's jump in and talk about exactly what that looks like. On the 1st, we've got Saturn, who's already retrograde, sliding back into this vibration of Pisces, lighting up that 8th house space. Now, as Saturn returns to this 8th house space, it's the zone of what I call joint resources or intimacy and assets. So any place you're sharing a resource, even if it's an emotional debt, it's around sex or sexuality, your reproductive organs, transformation. Astrology lives over here. Death, debt, taxes, inheritance, insurance. They all live in this 8th house space. So this is, as Saturn slides that back into this 8th house, it's like your final opportunity to kind of get serious about what's going on energetically where you have a connection to another resource. Now, some of you may realize that truly you've been holding on to some kind of toxic emotional bond, right? And it's not a bond. You're not actually bonded to that person. It's a trauma response. Or there's been some interesting financial dependence that's really quietly been disempowering you. And Saturn here is not going to play. It's going to ask for accountability. It's going to ask for maturity. It's going to say, you've already seen what life can be like on the other side when Saturn slid into Aries. Now we need to go back and firm up those boundaries around the way that you're sharing. You're sharing yourself or you're sharing your resources. Now, what I do think is brilliant about the retrograde as well is that I think it can help you restructure, whether it's restructuring your debt, your therapy, finally speaking up about something that doesn't feel right in your spirit anymore because it's imbalanced, and that could be in a relationship dynamic. Whatever it is, Saturn is going to support cleaning up contracts. What it's not going to do at these final degrees of Pisces that it's revisiting, Leo, is any place where there is suffering in some kind of silence. Now, on the second, we've got Mercury moving into Virgo, lighting up your second house space, and Mercury is totally comfortable in the vibration of Virgo because it's in domicile. So this is where our minds start to sharpen. They're going to sharpen and get a lot more discerning around money, stability, worth, value, the way that you allow creative money to flow towards you. So you're thinking at this point in the month more about, not only what do I really want, but also what do I need? Not just what makes me look good on paper. Yes, you can go get that brilliant job and you're going to kill it. But what do you actually need, Leo? So you might find yourself readdressing some of these things. You negotiate that raise because you're like, no, in this economy, we're going to need a little more money, right? Maybe you're updating some kind of offering that you have. You're creating a different income stream to flow towards you. You're going back over a budget. Whatever it is, Mercury is here to help you speak your value really very clearly, because the gift of Virgo is clarity and discernment, whether that's in your client work, your family work, your money work, your inner monologue. Beautiful Leos, what are you talking about saying to yourself? We're going to bring some clarity to this area of the chart before Mercury moves on. Now, on the 6th, we've got Uranus, who's moved into Gemini, lighting up your 11th house space, taking its retrograde as well. Now we're going to pull this revolution that Uranus brings to the table more towards the inner world. So around friendship, community, organization, social media, a long-term vision, or aspiration you have for yourself. As Uranus is retrograding through this 11th house, and we turn that light inward, you may realize that you've been staying in some kind of group dynamic, and it does not reflect your values as you have evolved. Or have you been chasing a future or a plan or a dream, and it was maybe even real for you a year ago, and today it doesn't feel authentic anymore? That's okay, because during the retrograde, you begin to redefine success on your terms in this area, right? That draining online space, that creator that's not doing it for you anymore, that group chat that you don't want to be a part of, and you get an opportunity to have your revolution, reconnect with your future self, your current self. What kind of world do you actually want to live in today? And who belongs in that world with you? I love this portion of the month for you. Okay, on the 7th, it's eclipse time. And we've got the full moon lunar eclipse happening in Pisces, again, lighting up that 8th house space. And this is a total. So you're getting a complete reset. Now, the nodes have been working between both Pisces and Virgo, and you've been moving more towards surrender. You've been moving more towards release and the softness. Now, this is a deeper release moment that's going to last over the next 6 months. And it is, I think, a deeper, more soul level letting go in this 8th house, because there's debt, there's debris, there's brilliance that lives here, but we've got to come to the other side of it first. So one of the things I was thinking about is, around your resources, your intimacy, or your assets. What kind of emotional contract needs to end for you, Leo? What kind of debt, whether that be that financial or that energetic, are you ready to not just release? You can't just release it. There's a forgiveness that has to come with it so that you can release it. Maybe you end up coming face to face with this. You're face to face over this next 6 months with a pattern of living or behaving. Maybe if it's even an old trauma pattern, something like that. Maybe it's around sex or power or betrayal. And you're realizing this has been coloring my behavior. This has been coloring my world. Or there's a shared financial reality that comes to a head here, and that can be something brilliant. It's the end of a loan. It's the end of a debt. You get an inheritance. There's something going on in a joint account. Whatever it is, I think that over the next 6 months, you learn this space where you can cancel that subscription. You can cut that cord with the ex. You can have a real conversation about intimacy and vulnerability and partnership, because the eclipse says you're not what happened to you. You're not still in the debt, but you are the one who gets to choose and set down how it's going to be now and going forward. All right, on the 18th, Mercury's done with that Virgo vibration, and it is on into the energy of Libra, lighting up your third house space. So now communication is going to soften and balance out a bit. Now you're refining how you speak, how you write, how you connect. You're looking for a little bit more collaboration in it as well. I like this transit because it's still Mercury in a Venusian space, but it's in a Venusian air sign. So, you're curious. We're curious. The mind is curious. Air is curious. You could also be more diplomatic. Maybe you're feeling a bit more poetic, whatever it is. I think that as Mercury moves into this particular space, enjoy it. Launch that writing project. This is a communication space. Have a healing conversation. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your siblings. Hosting a community event of some variety. Whatever it is, Mercury in Libra is going to help you find the charm, find that sweet and that honey, find the right words, and especially if it comes to needing to use words in spaces that need more harmony or repair. On the 19th, Venus is going to enter into the vibration of Virgo. And Venus is not a hustle hard planet. Venus is attracting in. So Venus is blessing now this space of your money, your worth, which is exactly what you need after having all of this South Node work go on in this second house, the things that aren't needed over there, the perfectionist tendencies, they've been being pulled away. And so now, with another eclipse coming in, Venus is just giving you a little bit of grace, a little bit of space where you spend with intention. And so it has service where you can receive. Venus is so much in the receptive vibration. You're receiving, receiving, receiving. So I wouldn't be surprised if for many of you, you do attract some kind of new income stream or money begins to flow to you in some kind of way. Or for others of you, you will make a conscious, clear choice to splurge on something because it's about your body. It's about beauty. It actually supports you. It makes you feel held and supported. So I'm interested to see what makes you feel valued and valuable as you experience this transit. Now you'll get a little bit more depth over the next 6 months to get clarity on that as well, because we'll have a new moon partial solar eclipse happening in Virgo on the 21st. And this is your cosmic money reset. Okay, cosmic money reset. So a new cycle is beginning in how you earn, how you spend, how you anchor your sense of self through value and receptivity. And because this is happening at 29 degrees, which is a karmic degree, this isn't just any old kind of new moon, kind of fresh start. This one is loaded with choice as well, because you've learned a lot. You have learned what 29 degrees, 30 degrees of a sign needs to teach you. So now you get to choose. So you may realize that, again, this scarcity and fear mentality, especially we've switched from a different landscape into a digital landscape. How are you doing it with fear and scarcity? And you realize you've been clinging to it, or you've been defining yourself through what you own, all the things, instead of who you are, because what's going to happen when you put all those things down, right? But I think that the brilliance of the new start here is choosing. You choose to raise your prices. You choose to take your career digitally. You choose a more honest budget. You stop chasing more and you're anchoring into how much enoughness you already have, because this eclipse, I think, is an opportunity to hear the universe say to you that it is time to just embody your value, not talk about it in your body. When you're doing, moving, speaking, and having your being, are you in your body to have that experience instead of consciousness just floating around in a body that's well-dressed, because I know you're well-dressed. As we're going to close out the month on the 22nd, we see the sun shifting into the vibration of Libra, lighting up your third house space, and Mars is going to shift into Scorpio, lighting up that fourth house space. So now your voice and your home life get even more activated. The sun wants you to connect and to speak and to learn and seek the collaboration. And Mars in your fourth house is bringing an energy into your most deep private place in your chart. And you want to do things. You want to renovate the house. Things are quite passionate behind the scenes. You're setting firmer boundaries in your home. Mars is Mars. There can be problems at the house, right? Mars is digging up something that has been buried for a while, but with the sun in Libra, now you're a little bit more able to collaborate and to cooperate with whatever that renovation and excavation needs to be as well. So I can expect at the end of the month, as you're just experiencing these particular transits by themselves, that it's going to be a time where there's a fair amount of passion going on behind the scenes in your life. And just remember, you get to balance your inner world of what you think and where your voice needs to be activated with your emotional world at home as well. And they don't need to come together in this bonded, finessed kind of way. They just need to be true, because this is a month where letting go of what you've been carrying and beginning to claim what you've always been worth is, I think, not a burden, but I think that it is your freedom as we're traveling through the month. It can be a good month for you, Leo. So let me know how it goes in the comment section down below. My absolutely brilliant and beautiful Virgo friends, and welcome to your horoscope for September of 2025. And first of all, out of the gate, happy birthday, beautiful Virgo friends who are on this side. I hope that your birthday time is turning out to be something absolutely brilliant, or if you haven't fully experienced it, then when it does come around, it just is the best thing ever. Honestly, I really want that for you. Now, there's something else I really want for you too, Virgo, and that is for you to have the very best astrology experience available to you, which means you've got to get your own chart. So click in my description box down below or go to a free site and get your natal chart. Because if you're listening to any astrologer on YouTube and reading any book, and it's not specifically based on your chart, you're getting gypped just a little bit. And I want you to have the best astrology, because the best astrology is your astrology. So grab your chart, then come back and listen with me and see where this is happening in your particular energy. So that way you know how to use it the best. Now let's jump in here and talk about what's going on in a general way for all you beautiful Virgo energies, because September is not only your month, but I think it's not just your month in this soft, gentle birthday cake kind of way. It's a soul reset kind of month. We've got a really powerful solar eclipse that's going to be happening in your sign. The South Node has been working over there like crazy, helping you get rid of things that are not needed anymore. Saturn is going to be doing this retrograde in your relationship house because it's sliding back into Pisces. And you're also being called to shed several different old identities that are not working anymore and really step into and start to shine us with this current truth about who you are. All right, let's jump in and talk about this month one transit at a time. Right here at the beginning of the month on the 1st, Saturn is going to re-enter Pisces. Now, it's already been retrograde in the vibration of Aries, but now it's coming back to where it's already been before into Pisces, which lights up your 7th house space. Now, I do want to go back for just a second to just demonstrate where these energies are shifting, because earlier this year, Saturn moved into Aries, and that was lighting up that 8th house space for you. So starting to feel a little bit more pressure around your intimacy, your assets, vulnerability, places where you share power, death, debt, taxes, insurance, and inheritance, all of those things. You started to get a peak, right? And that might have looked a lot like bringing questions to the surface like, who can I trust? Am I able to be this vulnerable? Things like that started to come to the surface, but it was just a beginning of the dance. So now as Saturn is going to retrograde backwards into Pisces and light up the 7th house space, which is going to bring the work back into your conscious chosen one-on-one relationships. This is like the final round of a little bit of karmic cleanup in how you relate to other people, especially where you really truly want to make commitments to other people. You want to sign contracts, maybe where you've had your own projections that you're putting onto people or people have been projecting onto you. So as this retrograde is happening now, you may start to realize that you've been giving up too much. You may realize you've been holding back some kind of resentment. You're over functioning in a relationship in some way. Maybe that you've relied on someone else's structure to avoid building your own. But Saturn here is coming back to this 29 degrees after having showed you that you can come forward into a different world. And it's not really asking, but it is demanding maturity, honesty, and new boundaries in your relationships, because what you learned when it stepped into how you trust this power and this vulnerability, it might have shown you that if you don't bring those two to the table, you can't really move forward. So my hope for you with the good energy of this retrograde is that, you might finally find yourself ending a pattern of behavior, especially if it's whether it's been work or it's been in relationships, the pattern of attracting unavailable, codependent, hyper independent partners. Maybe you're going to recommit to something or someone, but the roles are clearer. There's a better basis for shared values. There's more open communication. The thing to remember is that Saturn isn't here to punish, but it is here to make sure that the relationship is either real or needs to be released. Okay, on the 2nd, we have Mercury moving into Virgo, lighting up your first house space. Mercury's home, like you get the ruling planet back in your sign. It's giving you clarity. It's giving confidence. There's a mental sharpness that comes with this. You're thinking clearly, speaking clearly and directly, and finally ready to be like, here's who I am now. So you're saying the things that are true for you now. You update your bio. You are going to speak more openly about something that's a real personal truth for you that has likely come to fruition too, because that South Node has been working on you. So this place is, Virgo, I'm telling you, where there was maybe more perfectionism or more, it needs to look like this. You have such a different discernment, and I love it because I think your voice in the truth of what you're going to find out this month cuts through the noise, but it's with so much brilliant intention. On the 6th, we've got Uranus, who's going to retrograde in the vibration of Gemini, where it recently stepped into there. This lights up your 10th house space. So this retrograde brings, first of all, what all retrogrades bring, and that is reflection. But you're reflecting on your career, your public image, your reputation. What do we call you in public? And Uranus, as it was sliding forward in Gemini, was helping you to innovate your profession or innovate an image in some way. And now as it goes retrograde, it's time to come back to the internal blocks and examine them and go, hold on, why is this keeping me from success? And you have your innovation or your reflection and your revolution there. So you may realize that there's pieces or large whole portions of your career or your reputation that has really been shaped by fear and by judgment, or that you've been chasing what you're calling freedom. Just because you don't want to commit to anything, you're actually resisting the commitment, right? So whatever it is in the dichotomy, because Gemini is an air energy, you get to look at both sides here. Uranus in this retrograde is going to ask you, are you sabotaging your own success in some way? Because deep down, you're afraid of the visibility. You're afraid of your past becoming public. You're afraid of responsibility. And hopefully you come out of the other side as we get to springtime of 2026, with a little bit more of your genius awake, with this wild idea that changes your professional direction, or you realizing that you're ready to lead with your voice and in a way that feels revolutionary, even if it's just to you, because it's about the revolutionary stance of what's true for you. On the 7th, here comes eclipse energy. We've got a full moon lunar eclipse happening in Pisces, and this is a total lunar eclipse, so a complete reset over here, lighting up your 7th house space. Now, this is emotional. The North Node has been working to pull us towards the destiny people we need to meet now. And we have to surrender, and there's a vulnerability, and there's a releasing of things that don't belong in our one-on-one relationships. So at this pretty emotional release point in your relationship, your conscious chosen one-on-one relationships, I think over the next 6 months, we see that a pattern ends completely. You literally step onto new land and territory in your relationship because a partnership will likely shift into a different direction. And most importantly, that mirror that this relationship has been showing you, it cracks wide open. So you realize you've been disappearing inside of some kind of relationship, right? Or you're projecting your issues onto someone else so that it brings power back to you. This can break up a relationship, absolutely. But more than what I think breaking up a relationship, I think it can break down a relationship to bring honest conversation, the kind of necessary space. If something needs to die off here in your relationship, it can start on fresh feet by getting clear and honest about what's been going on over here. So I'm hoping this eclipse over the next 6 months does just that for you, right? Like you set a boundary that changes everything. You say no with love. You say love with vulnerability. You let yourself receive in a relationship without guilt. You let what falls to fall away and just let you emerge in this current state of who you are in this brand new world that we're building. On the 18th, Mercury now is going to shift into Libra, lighting up your second house space. So now your thoughts are going to shift more towards your self-worth, your value, money, how you use your creative talents to let money flow towards you. But what you're really doing here is refining this area. You're refining those finances, that internal sense of value, because everything stems off of it. So for some of you, you might be reworking some kind of pricing or budget in your life. A big piece, this is Mercury, is I think many of you may be reassessing how you speak to yourself about your enoughness, right? You're receiving even your own kind words. Now, at a much more practical level, maybe you're having a very important money conversation, but you're doing it like a Libra. There's clarity, there's diplomacy, there's grace that's happening here. This is also a beautiful time to bring balance to how you give and receive, right? Libra can be very, very giving, but you have to practice being Venusian and receive here as well. On the 19th, we've got Venus now entering into your sign, and welcome home, beauty. This is a glow up money. When Venus comes to your sign, you just get magnetic. You become charming. There's something deeply attractive about you, especially when you lead like a Venusian. Lead with some softness. Lead with that brilliance of simplicity that you have. Just update your look. If you're ready for that, if you feel like your look is not in vibration, because Venus is attracting. And we can never underestimate how much a look or a color or sitting simply and comfortably in your own being makes your body feel loved, makes you start a self-love ritual because you want to be calling that to you. For some of you too, you may draw in a new love or a new romance. Absolutely. For those of you who are coupled up, this is a wonderful season for deepening something that is already existing. But whatever happens, by simply showing up as your most present, understanding your valued self, you're going to have a completely delicious Venusian experience. On the 21st, we've got a new moon partial solar eclipse, and this one is in your sign. So here it is. It is your identity reset. And at 29 degrees of Virgo, this eclipse is final. It's freeing. It's fated. You're beginning a new version of yourself. And it's one that really no longer fits inside of projections that others have put on you, projections you've put on yourself. For many of you, I'm going to be curious to see, you've maybe been able to hold a vision of yourself for a very long time. And the vision over this last year has felt a bit foggy. You're like, I can't really see the future self. I'm trying to grow or to build into that. Well, what you can do is go, maybe you realize you've been curating yourself to meet somebody else's expectations and you're tired of doing that. You're like, I'm tired of being filtered. I'm tired of being edited and digestible. Okay. So hopefully as this eclipse is shaping out over this next 6 months for you, you say yes to a new name, a new look, a new brand, a new path. You stop explaining yourself. You choose yourself. And let the world adjust to that vibration. You receive. I don't think that this is like your glow up makeover. I actually think that this month is a return and a reclamation. Now, as we're going to close out this month on the 22nd, birthday time's over. The sun is going to shift into the vibration of Libra, lighting up that second house space. And Mars is going to shift into Scorpio, lighting up the third house space. Now, the sun brings light, heat, life, and vitality, so warming up your value in your financial sector of your chart, while Mars is bringing the emotional fire to your communication area. So you're speaking with clarity. You're speaking with passion. You're claiming what it is that you deserve. But how does this look in a practical sense? Some of you may assert yourself financially. Right? You may say, no, this is how this is going to go. You cut through a lot of the confusion because you're like, nope, this is the financial plan that I have. You're telling a truth about something that's going on financially for you. You're using your voice to protect your own peace. I love this clip that I've recently put up. It's Venus talking about what's important now, and it's rest. And we don't need a 30-step face routine to be that girl. You know what I mean? You're just healing your self-worth. You're not defending it. You're just at an opportunity here this month to stop shrinking to fit other people's stories, live your own. I don't think that this month is necessarily easy, but I do think that it is very, very real. And there's a version of you with your beautiful wings that has been waiting to rise. And this month, by the time we close it, I think you are much more prepared to do that. And over this next 6 months, who you become, the world better look out. All right, beautiful Virgos, have a gorgeous month. Let me know how it goes in the comment section down below. My absolutely beautiful Libra friends, and welcome to your horoscope for September of 2025, and happy birthday to you. Libra, this is your month, and before we get mid-month and actually click into your birthday, the theme that I think always presents itself in some way at this time is about all of the healing that you've kind of done in the dark in Virgo season when things were lighting up the 12th house space so that you can rise brilliantly into the light as your birthday time comes around. We'll talk about all of that as we break this month down. But Libra, first and foremost, if you do not have your own natal chart already, please make sure you click in my description box down below and get one, or go get a free one, whatever you need to do so that you can see these transits in your personal chart. Because as much as we want this to be the most delicious astrology ever, it can only be general. So it's going to be the best astrology is going to be your astrology. So you've got to have your chart to see it. Okay. All right, Libra, heading into September, it's just such an invitation to, first of all, step back so that you can have that return back home to yourself. And as the eclipses are going to hit us this month, for you, it will be in those 6th and 12th house axes. It's a lot about this sacred rhythm and this dance that happens between that mind, body, spirit connection for you. It's less about the doing, and I think more about the undoing for you. Less about production and more about restoration. So let's talk about how all of the dates that play in this month can help you do that. Now, right at the beginning of the month, Libra, September 1st, we've got Saturn retrograde, but it's re-entering into the vibration of Pisces, which lights up your 6th house space. Now, earlier this year, Saturn took this dip into Aries, into your 7th house of conscious, chosen one-on-one relationships. And it might have started to stir up a future, right? Where you're going in the future, but also questions about boundaries and commitments and responsibility with other people. But now as Saturn is going to slide back into that Pisces space, into your 6th house, where it's going to be asking you to kind of return to the rituals and habits that have supported you in your body, your mind, and your spirit so that you can be of service to other people and so that you can have a more balanced interaction as it steps forward into that Aries energy. Now, the beginning portion of the retrograde, I think it's really possible to realize that you've been overextending yourself, or working past your limits in some way, because you're trying to maybe manage everyone else's needs but your own. Or this idea that you've used work as a way to avoid those more vulnerable and deeper emotional healing connections. So hopefully during this retrograde, which will take us until about October, November this year, you are able to restructure and to slow down, restructure that schedule, get more serious about your wellness, because it's really not about hustling past anything. It's about honoring the energy that's there, honoring a daily routine that honors you. And Saturn reminds you here that discipline can be an act of love and respect, especially when it comes to your daily routine, your health and your wellness, the way that you talk to yourself, and setting up a schedule that really works well with your energy. Now, on the 2nd, we've got Mercury moving into the vibration of Virgo before it gets into your house, but it's lighting up this 12th house space. So as it's coming back into this energy, we've got, it's coming into the hidden realm of your chart. So your dreams, your unconscious, your subconscious, your inner world, your mind becomes more introspective. It's the time of the year where it's time to come into a bit more solitude. But the solitude is not about isolation. It's about getting quiet so that you can review the year that you've had, write it down, journal about it. And it becomes this source of clarity. Maybe you even start to crave a little bit more silence, or you're wanting to go into therapy and process the last year, have kind of a review. But either way, I think you notice that your thoughts are carrying a bit more meaning. Your dream life can be absolutely vivid at this time. And I would encourage you to write it down, meditate. If there are unfinished spiritual practices or beliefs that are showing up in these dreams, write them down as soon as you get up. Now, on the 6th, we've got Uranus, who shifted into Gemini, taking a retrograde here in this 9th house space for you. Uranus is a rewirer. It's an awakener, right? And for you, it's all about your belief system and your connection to things that are true and beyond your horizon. So as it's retrograding through this 9th house, the first place that we're called to is having this urge to kind of have this little personal revelation or rebellion in terms of things like your education, your faith, your worldview, publishing, marketing, broadcasting, any of these things. Now, in a very uncomfortable way, I do think that it's possible that you see that a belief you've really been clinging to, you've been clinging to this for a while. It's been an integral piece of truth for you, but it doesn't resonate anymore. Or that your faith it's been shaped more by fear than freedom. You know what I mean? So I'll be interested to see what that looks like for you. And hopefully, as this retrograde takes us all the way until 2026, you honor that call you feel to study something that's a little bit more radical. And radical just means very different for you. Or you shift to spiritual practice. Maybe some of you might shift it completely and entirely, but you're starting to let curiosity guide you, not so much dogma. So as you're having this awakening to a truth, it's a truth that already lives in you. That's the thing that I like to remind us, is that it's a seed that was already planted inside of you, and now it's just starting to blossom. As we get to the 7th, we've got the full moon total lunar eclipse happening in Pisces. So this is a complete reset to this 6th house area. It's a major emotional release point for the next 6 months. But of course, for you, it is specifically around health and work and daily routine, your mental health and wellness. Now, the 6th house, I want to point it out again, but this is the house that rules your routines, how you service other people, but also big news this year is your nervous system. So I think that this eclipse, while bringing this release, is asking where you're giving too much. Where have you abandoned your body for the sake of productivity? And you may realize that you've had some habits that really have been very quietly depleting you, or that you've been sacrificing your well-being to be seen as useful in some way. Now, I think that for some of you, this will certainly bring an end to some kind of work situation. It can absolutely bring some kind of health scare to the surface, and it forces you to change. But the point here would be, where do we step in to honor yourself? Finally, rest, Say no. Begin a gentle practice in your life, gentle eating, intuitive eating, stretching. You're allowed to have slower mornings if that's what you need. No longer treating your body like it's this machine and your nervous system like it's supposed to keep firing, but you begin to treat it like it's a sacred home, because it's the place where you're going to do the most living in your daily routines. Now, as we get to the 18th, we see Mercury shifting into your sign, lighting up your first house space, and your voice returns. You're more expressive, more clear, more grounded, even within yourself. After all of this introspection that we actually did when Mercury was retrograde and then it was moving through your 12th house, this is the moment where I feel like you feel like you're coming online again. You can speak again. But this time it's really not from anything performance. It's more from truth. And it can be very practical things. You are talking about yourself differently. Maybe you're telling your story a little bit differently. You are speaking in a way that's not so polished. It's not very Venusian, but it's very whole. It's very wholesome. And this can look like you extend that out. You update your social media, you rewrite a website, you decide that you want to communicate a different color for the year that will guide everything. It's really a brilliant kind of energy. On the 19th, we've got Venus moving into Virgo, lighting up your 12th house space. And Venus being your ruling planet, is about attraction, attraction, attraction. And as Venus enters the most private part of your chart, it's attracting in a grace, it's attracting in a softness and a healing to this more hidden space. This is the fall in love with your solitude transit. Okay, so, it's funny when Venus comes to the 12th house, a lot of different things I've seen happen. First of all, you may simply find some deep sweetness in rest, in prayer, or forgiveness. Forgiveness work maybe comes up for you. But sometimes what can happen is we revisit a past love or a past love story. And it can be through dreams, through art, through you're watching a show and something comes up. But sometimes we develop an actual crush or some kind of affinity on someone we don't quite understand and we don't want them to know just yet. So that can always be interesting. Whatever it is, Venus here is going to be loving quietly, but quite deeply, and looking to have a fair bit of a discernment as well. Now, on the 21st, we've got our next eclipse, but this one's just a partial solar eclipse. It's a new moon solar eclipse in Virgo in that 12th house as well. So here's our beginning, but it's a beginning to your mental health, to that soul solitude restoration, to spiritual hygiene. Now, this eclipse is happening at 29 degrees, which is a karmic degree. It means that this is not necessarily a soft start. It's more like you're stepping into a new soul contract, right? Or some kind of soul contract that you have in your life, maybe even many, is getting a reset. And it's because you may realize that I've actually been running and staying busy, staying distracted, staying high functioning because I'm running from myself. And the parts of you that have needed a lot of love have been going unheard. Now, what I like about this eclipse as well is that I think the South Node has been doing some great work to remove some of these blinders from us. So my hope for you is that you're able to use this eclipse energy, both of them, over the next 6 months and create some kind of new morning routine. Forgive yourself. End some of the self-sabotaging patterns. This is closure with a past self while simultaneously having this kind of quiet opening to something that's more deeply vulnerable and sacred about yourself. And you may need some morning time in silence to be able to hear that. As we're going to close out the month, happy birthday. On the 22nd, we see the sun shift into your first house. At the same time, we're going to see that Mars is going to enter into Scorpio, into your second house. So as the sun returns to your sign, as it does every year at this time, it's bringing light, heat, life, and vitality and lighting up and helping you rise back from this behind the scenes work that you were really doing while the sun was quite motivated over there. Meanwhile, Mars is activating your self-worth zone and your money zone and how you use your creative being to allow money to flow to you. So it's giving you a little bit of fire to take action here, I think, on what you need in this area. So for some of you, you may finally move forward with something because it's finally clicking in and starting to feel a lot more aligned. It's a great energy for that. You can start a new project. Some of you are going to find out you've needed to raise your rates or raise your time expectations with things. But whatever it is, there's a sureness. There's a more sure of yourself energy that I think comes with this. And the eclipses have been clearing out space. So now you get to fill it in with more you, but it's the you that is risen in the light because you have done that behind the scenes work. It's a month, I think, of deep release, but there's a lot of gentle power that's available for you here, Libra. So I hope you take a lot of advantage of it. And of course, share your journey with me in the comment section down below. Happy birthday, Libra. Beautiful Scorpio friends, and welcome to your horoscope for September of 2025. And Scorpio, before we even get busy jumping in, I just want to remind you to please make sure that you have your own natal chart. Any horoscope that you're listening to online, anything that you're reading in the books, it's all going to be very general unless it is geared specifically towards your personal chart. So I just want you to take that into account, but give yourself the gift of the very best astrology, which is your astrology, by having your own chart and seeing where these planets are sitting in your story. All right, Scorpio, this month you're doing what you do best, which is transforming. But this time, I think that special scorpionic alchemy is happening more across the space of what sits in your heart and what you want to build for your future. The theme I kept coming to in my mind was, yes, you're letting go of that performative joy, but there is just such a future mindedness that seems to be in your space. Now, we're going to have the eclipses this month, and they're going to ask us, where are you pretending to enjoy something that is no longer feeding you? And what kind of life are you actually here to build and transform into? Now, Saturn is also going to be sliding back into the vibration of Pisces. We're going to talk about that very quickly, but Mars is coming home, entering into your sign. So I think your energy is going to be ready for a little bit of a rebirth. Okay, let's jump in and talk about the dates available for this month. So right at the beginning of the month on the 1st, Saturn is retrograde, but now it's going to slide back into that vibration of Pisces, lighting up your 5th house space. Now, a little bit earlier this year, Saturn took this dip into Aries, into your 6th house. So it was beginning a longer process of restructuring your work, your daily routines, habits, your health, your mental health and wellness. But now, having seen where you can go and what direction that's going to be like for you, Scorpio, you have to tell me in the comment section, actually, how many of you started a fitness routine, right? You like started some kind of new fitness routine. Okay, let me know that in the comment section down below. But you saw what it could be. And now, as Saturn's going to slide back and return to Pisces, back to that 5th house, it's like it's offering you one last karmic review around the joy, the creativity, your vitality, your pleasure, or your play. For many of you, there may be things that you're going back to or going back over in regards to children. Okay. So one of the things that I think that this retrograde leads us to take a look at is that you may be realizing where there is this space where you've been genuinely just performing joy instead of actually having it. There's been some kind of disconnect, right? And as Saturn had popped forward in that Aries energy, you wanted to get a little vitality back. And now you're like, oh, I've been performing, not doing. Maybe you've been afraid to truly express something about yourself, or your children have been afraid to express something about themselves, or staying in some kind of romantic creative cycle that is not actually inspiring and productive. It's actually draining you. So my hope for you when you're experiencing this retrograde is that you get to have this recommitment to something creative in your life, but it has boundaries. It has purpose, right? It's very Saturnian now. You're not chasing anything for validation. You start making that art. You start sharing those stories. Your children start making those art and sharing those stories because they matter to you. For some of you, you may have this moment too in the 5th house space where you're maturing in your love life. And it's brilliant because it's something that leads to less fantasy and a lot more depth. Now, on the 2nd, we're going to see that Mercury slides into the vibration of Virgo, where it's in home court territory. But this is going to light up your 11th house space, Scorpio. So now your mind, your thinking, your communication is turning towards all things social, friends, community, collaboration, but also a larger vision that you have for yourself. So this is a great time to organize some kind of group effort, put out an idea, pitch out an idea to a network. Clarify a goal that you have and the steps that you need to take in order to get there, right? I also really like to use the 11th house to talk about spaces like social media. So if this is a time where you're wanting to connect or you're wanting to learn how to be better in social media or organize it in some way, this is a great transit to do that, because you could be reconnecting with a mentor. You're cleaning up that online presence. You're getting a little bit more strategic about how you show up in your circles. This is a time where we're realizing that the digital revolution is real. We are online. So where are you in the online collective space? All right, on the 6th, we've got Uranus, who has moved forward into the vibration of Gemini, now taking its retrograde until the spring of 2026. And this is all lighting up your 8th house space. So that inward turn of this Uranian energy in the house of assets and intimacy is what I like to call it, but it also holds shared resources, shared power, death, debt, taxes, inheritance, trauma, therapy, sexuality. There's a lot of the really deep things that we are deeply connected to that live in that 8th house space. Now, this retrograde is subtle, but I also think that it is powerful because it wakes us up from the inside out right now, in this place where you hold these emotions and these ties and these issues of trust with people. You may realize that there is some kind of pattern from the past, whether it's a trauma pattern or it's a behavior pattern, and it's still influencing your trust issues today. Or that maybe you have been avoiding some kind of really true, delicious intimacy because it's this sense of, I might not be safe, I might lose control. Well, during the Uranus retrograde, first of all, it's a great place to do that deeper healing work, to have this review of your boundaries in your shared resources, especially sexual partnerships, right? And maybe you're having to speak it out loud. You're saying the things that were scaring you before. You're saying what's really in your head. You realize you don't have to survive anymore. This is actually a beautiful transit for evolution. And sometimes we just can't do this evolutionary work until the energies come by and kind of dig it out of us. And Uranus is waking up thoughts, beliefs, ideas, and words that we've been wanting to share for quite some time. Now, on the 7th, we've got this full moon total lunar eclipse in Pisces, lighting up that 5th house space. And this is a massive emotional release, but it's in the house of course, your children or things around children, joy, creativity, pleasure, play, romance, self-expression. The North Node has been moving brilliantly through this Piscean area, encouraging us to be more in the sensitivity, be more in the trust and the surrender that things are actually going to be working out. Now, I also like that the North Node, in my experience, tends to bring people or situations that change the course of our lives and our destiny. And there's a liberation that comes with it. So at this full moon, over the next 6 months, if you're feeling that nostalgia and that ache of kind of an old dream, you're more sensitive to it in some way, and you want to surrender to the ease of that, I think that this transit and this particular lunation is going to be useful for you. Some of you may also realize that you've been seeking love or connection, but all you're actually getting, because something's been in the way, is a mirroring of your wounds instead of the mirroring of your growth, right? This can be really revealing. For some of you, I know I've talked to some of you, you felt like your creative fire has been dimmed for a while, but it was dimmed because there was this perfectionism that was in the way, and that was making you be afraid to be exposed. Well, I pray that for this lunation energy for you, that you get to let go of trying to be liked or be in the perfectionist position, or you stop romanticizing an unavailable person. but instead give yourself permission to feel the grief and the joy because the creativity is in it. The liberation is in that. You don't need to explain that to anybody. And on the other side, I think that this brings a lot of liberation. On the 18th, now Mercury has done with Virgo. It has just moved on. And so now it's lighting up your 12th house space. And so as your thoughts begin to drift in the 12th house space, it's the quieting of the mind, a time for prayer, poetry, introspection. Your thoughts are drifting more inwards or more behind the scenes, which the 12th house is also a house of closure and completion. So there may be things that honestly, words, thoughts, dreams that you're seeing come to a completion. You might feel a lot more sensitive now, but also much more attuned to what's really going on beneath the surface. Journaling, reconnecting with some kind of spiritual path, taking a time away from social spaces so that you can clear your head and hear your own breath. This is definitely a preparation time for your solar return and your solar rebirth that's going to be happening later in October. On the 19th, Venus is entering into the vibration of Virgo, lighting up your 11th house space. And Venus is not a hustle hard planet. It's not a hustle hard planet. Venus is an attracting energy, bringing the blessings to this 11th house, to those networks, to those long-term dreams. Your connections soften. The way your connections connect with you is softened. Your collaborations become more graceful, become more meaningful. That love, that support from people who really show up for you, not just talk pretty. You start to feel this come in. And I was thinking about this as I was going through your horoscope. I'm interested to hear what you share with me this month, Scorpio, because some of you may honestly meet someone through a group and you end up collaborating on a project with them, or there's something about this person in a group setting or community that makes you really feel seen. And even if you've contributed in a very quiet way, you're still feeling very seen and very held. Relationships that grow under this particular transit, I think, are grounded in a lot of kindness, especially if they are meeting in terms of some kind of shared purpose. Now, we just have to be mindful as well. Venus is still Venus. So sometimes someone's been in the friend zone for a very long time and you didn't expect it, and a friend becomes a lover. All right, on the 21st, we've got the new moon partial solar eclipse happening in Virgo. So we'll see what this helps bring to the table, because this eclipse is at 29 degrees of Virgo. And it says it's time to be precise and discerning about your purpose. You are not just dreaming anymore. You are planning. Ooh, Virgo words. I love that. So this is not only a new moon and a new beginning. The South Node's been here taking away perfectionist tendencies, taking away things that are not needed for you anymore. So this is a fated new beginning. If you realize that you have outgrown a friendship or a friendship group or a group dynamic in some way, or that your goals, I'm saying those in question marks and in quotation marks, if they were based on someone else's idea of success, you might be at this eclipse and over the next 6 months experience the cutting of the cords. Because that's a false future. You're building towards a false future. And instead, you're joining this new community that is a part of where you think you want to go for your future. You finally announce out loud, this is a dream, this is a vision I have for myself. And that gets you in alignment with the right kind of community. You become willing to be visible, not just in general, but in a purpose that's important to you. And then you get to practice that transformation of trust that the right people are going to meet you right at the space of your purpose and help lift you up. On the 22nd, before we're going to end out the month, we've got the sun entering the vibration of Libra and Mars entering into Scorpio, into your first house. Now, as the sun is slipping through your 12th house, you are first and foremost invited to slow down. It's bringing light, heat, life, and vitality to a slower sector of your life, resting time before it's going to be time for your birthday. But Mars entering into your sign is firing up, right? You're like, but I want to do some stuff. So I think that this is a powerful combination. It's a quiet mind and an activated body. So you might begin to work on something behind the scenes. The sun just wants to work behind the scenes on a project, something like that, and you're not going to launch it. You're not going to put it out right now, but you have a little vigor, a little vitality to work on it behind the scenes, and then you're going to launch it later, right? Or you're going to actively take some space to reflect while also getting in touch with what's that internal emotional flame that's kind of rising, because you're still preparing for your annual solar rebirth. But now you get to do it on a little bit slower and a little bit more intentional, more like doing it on your terms. Now, I will say on the 22nd as well, something I am mindful of with this combination of energies is that affairs can start. They can absolutely start. Someone who's been living in the space behind the scenes, and then all this Martian energy comes up, and there's just something that is sexually profound about it. So it's just something to be mindful of. It doesn't mean 100% it will happen, but these are when things can happen. And we've got a lot of eclipse energies going on right now. So the revelation is going to be massive as we travel for the rest of the year. All right, my beautiful Scorpio friends, this is a month where I think you are leaving behind a lot of illusions, especially over performative joy or anything like that. There's a space to step into clarity of your own purpose. And I think, Scorpio, I think all you ever need to do that is you just need to feel, release, and trust, right? This is your time. This is your time. This is your creativity. This is your future. And I can't wait to see what truths are revealed for you this month. Let me know in the comment section down below, and have a great month, Scorpio. My absolutely brilliant and beautiful Sagittarius friends, and welcome to your horoscope for September of 2025. And Sagittarius, before we even jump in, please remember to grab your own natal chart so that you can see exactly where these aspects and transits are happening in your own chart, because the very best astrology is your astrology. And no matter who you are listening to on YouTube or reading your books, if you're not looking at your own chart, you're just getting a general view, which may be enough for you, but I want you to have the best. Okay, beautiful Sagittarius. September to me is a month where it's like rebuilding from the inside out, because there's so much structural change that's like available for you. Not to mention we've got the eclipses, and they're hitting your home and career axes. So there's this real question for you this month about, first of all, at this point in your journey, what does real success look like to you? And what does it look like to you when your inner world has had that structural change and it feels really solid? You know what I mean? Now, we're also going to see that Saturn is going to take its already retrograde motion and slide back into the vibration of Pisces. So it's literally sliding you back into the fourth house space. So you're kind of being reminded here that the truest ambition, the truest way to get what you want comes from having an unshakable foundation, right? So let's jump in and explore what the month has to offer for you. So right at the beginning of the month on the 1st, we see Saturn, who is again retrograde, re-entering the vibration of Pisces, lighting up that fourth house space. Now, earlier this year, Saturn had pushed forward and entered into Aries, lighting up your fifth house space. So you had this push to kind of take your creativity, your romance, some kind of self-expression for yourself, a joy, a pleasure, a play, more seriously. But you just got a little taste of it. And now, as Saturn's going to come back to Pisces and return to this fourth house space, it's one last deep dive review for you on home, family, your roots, what gives you emotional security, right? Your questions about what is home for you, who is home for you. Now, some of the things that I think that the retrograde, as it's sliding back in, may have you realizing is that you've been building some kind of career or something about your lifestyle in a space that the ground was like shaky, you know? And maybe it's not that the physical ground was shaky. Maybe you have a wonderful home to live in, but it's like there's been an avoidance of some kind of deeper emotional work in your private life, in your home life. Or maybe you've been avoiding something with your family boundaries, right? That's a tough place. Or postponing that home change because you're like, no, it just feels too messy. I don't want to go through that. Now, I think that as we are sliding back to this Pisces vibration, Saturn already did so much work here in this fellow mutable energy for you that
there's a lot of hope. You may decide to renovate, to move, to finally have a really hard conversation with a family member. Or maybe you're going to work on creating your own emotional safety in your own body, so that no matter where you are, you feel like home to you, right? Because Saturn says, build the foundation, the rest will come. When we get to the second, we've got Mercury entering into Virgo, lighting up your 10th house space. So your mind is now shifting towards your career, your public image, long-term goals, what we call you in public. And Mercury here, because it's in domicile, it's very comfortable. It sharpens your thinking. You're thinking about, where am I headed? How do I communicate my professional value? You're maybe updating that resume, pitching yourself out for some kind of job or gig or something like that. But there's also a space here where I do think we are in the digital age. So you might be refining something about you on social media or in a digital space as well. And what you would likely be doing is going for discernment, right? You want to reflect your expertise, or you're really tightening in on your reputation in some way. So this is a great transit for you to make very clear, confident moves in your career world, in your reputation world, or in some kind of long-term goal that you have, and have yourself really well aligned because you're clear on who you are and why you're doing it. On the 6th, we see Uranus, who shifted into Gemini, move into its retrograde energy. So in Gemini, it was lighting up your 7th house space of conscious, chosen one-on-one relationships, your partnership sector. This is a quiet, but I think really powerful review on how your relationships are reflecting your growth and what needs a shift here. Because Uranus is one of our professor planets. It's setting the syllabus for what we're working on, and we are working on different kind of communication and relationships. So it just came in and got a few degrees in, but now it needs to slide back so that you can review what you've seen. So you may realize that you've been attracting relationships to you that feel exciting, but they are massively unstable. There is something about them that is unstable and makes you feel like your foundation is not right, or maybe you've been resisting taking some kind of deeper commitment out of your own fear of, I'm going to lose my freedom, right? So this could be a dynamic that you're exploring. Be easy with yourself. What did Uranus show you as it came in? What kind of new language did it give you for your experiences? Because my hope for this retrograde period, which will take us into 2026, is that you decide to shake up your relationship dynamics. Uranus is a great shaker-upper, right? Because it awakens us. Maybe you're going to experiment with new or different ways to communicate, certainly, but maybe in collaboration, in commitment in some way. It's all about upgrading how you partner, not necessarily abandoning it. Uranus can come shake relationships out of your life that don't belong there, but typically it's about bringing in a version of you that you maybe haven't been working as closely with before. Okay, on the 7th, here we are. We've had all this excitement, Uranus, retrogrades, all these things, but now it's time for a total lunar eclipse in the vibration of Pisces in that 4th house space. So the total lunar eclipse tells us this is a complete reset. Complete reset. You're not kind of going to make a shift. This is a complete reset over this next 6 months. And this is an eclipse, and it's an emotional climax of the month, right? A chapter in your home or your emotional life is ending, possibly connected to something that began 6 months prior. And the uncomfortable part is that you may have to really face the reality that a living situation, some kind of family relationship, some kind of emotional patterning, it's not supportive anymore. And that could mean, once we see the truth, we have to do something. I have to make a move. I need to separate. I need to install a boundary. And as this 6 months is working out, I think that first thing that you do, because this is a total eclipse, is release some significant piece of family karma. Maybe you forgive that parent. You create a home space that feels like it's you, it reflects you. And it makes room for you to have the new kind of stability over this next 6 months that you feel grounded into, separate from anyone else's story. On the 18th, we've got Mercury now shifting into the vibration of Libra. When Mercury is on, and it just gets on with getting through these signs. Okay, this lights up your 11th house space. So now your focus is going to shift more towards networking, your social space, your community. This can also be social spaces and communities online. But the other part I never want to leave out is that your future goals and ambitions that you have for yourself, your future vision. So your conversations now are going to shift towards friends, collaborations. Are we allies? Important people may be coming in. Maybe you're going to go to a networking event. For some of you, depending on your age, you're going back to school or something like that. You have realized over this last 8-9 months what you need in order to grow a particular area in your life, and you join that mastermind group, or you connect with someone who's sharing a long-term goal, something like that. It's a great transit to put your voice into the spaces that inspire you and will help you grow. On the 19th, Venus now enters into the vibration of Virgo, lighting up that 10th house space. What blessings are these? They are career and public reputation blessings, right? This is your public professional glow up. Enjoy it, Sag, because this is the thing. Venus, remember, is an attracting planet. It makes you magnetic. In the 10th house, it's like you are magnetic to people around you. It's easier for people to receive you in some way. So you may receive some recognition for some kind of work that you did. Maybe you connect with a mentor. You have a project that comes in that it feels valuable, very Venusian to you. But it's going to be done in a Virgo kind of way. It's going to be a bit more organized. There's a bit more structure happening to it because that's what you're going to crave. And it feels like whatever you're doing in a professional or social space like this, that it has value. You are being of service. But I would not be surprised for many of you if you don't get some kind of beautiful invitation into some kind of professional space or space that changes your reputation. Now, on the 21st, we've got our next eclipse, and this is a partial solar eclipse, and this one's also happening in Virgo, giving a little bit of help. This is a career reset, but at 29 degrees of Virgo, it's a karmic degree. It's a turning point in your public path. I cannot wait to see what this brings for you into your life because it will change your life direction. For some of you, you may realize that a current path that you're on, especially with work or some kind of title that you have. And when I say title, I also just mean, what is the name that we call you when you come into the room? Do we call you wife? Do we call you mother? Do we call you father? Some of you may be going, this title is no longer aligned with me. It's no longer aligned with me and who I am. Or you realize that you've been holding back from something you really want to do because it's felt a bit too risky. And now that you don't need to do it perfectly, you might be getting glimmers of courage to be able to step into it. So you may pivot. Now, it doesn't mean you have to get divorced if that's the title we call you in public, right? You just need to pivot the brand. What kind of wife, what kind of husband, what kind of grandmother, what kind of mother, what kind of associate, what kind of CEO are you going to be now? But it will be based on stepping into some kind of leadership position, right? For some of you, you will launch that new business. However unsteady it goes, you launch it. Because the eclipse is saying here, be Virgo, be precise, be discerning about where you're heading, and then just commit fully and let the universe open the rest of the path. On the 22nd, as we're going to close out this month, we've got the sun shifting into the vibration of Libra, lighting up that 11th house space, and Mars shifting into Scorpio, lighting up your 12th house space. Now, the sun is bringing in that light, heat, life, and motivation. So it is lighting up your community sector. I'm telling you, Sagittarius, you're going to be busy. There's stuff to be done. There are people to be talking to. Meanwhile, as Mars is moving into this quieter, more spiritual and subconscious house, this is going to be a different conversation. You're moving from a place that's a little bit more intuitive. You're very socially active at the end of the month, but you're also carving out private time for your own quiet, your own inner work, your meditation, your prayer life, whatever that is for you. Now, Mars in the 12th can bring hidden conflicts or frustrations straight up to the surface. But I like that the sun in Libra on this day brings kind of an incredible motivation to handle it, to get rebalanced, right? The combination of both the sun And Mars here is a lot of motivation to finish out old cycles, prepare for this new chapter, or to move something forward that's presenting as that particular frustration. So Sagittarius, this month, I do think is going to be a dance of balancing your inner and outer life, because you can't really push towards a bigger goal and just be safe and rooted, right? But you do have to root in order to be able to rise. So build a really good foundation, learn what that means for you this month. I think keep doing what you do brilliantly, which is to set your sights high and beyond and towards the horizon, and just realize that when your roots are really strong, that foundation is strong, your branches can reach anywhere that they want to go. All right, my beautiful Sagittarian friends, please have a glorious month. Let me know how it's going as we travel through the month together. I will see you in the weeklies, and I will also see you coming very soon in your 2026 annual horoscopes with your astrology team. Beautiful Capricorn friends, and welcome to your horoscope for September of 2025, where Capricorn, this month, I feel like you have the opportunity to clear your voice. And as you're clearing that voice, this is what creates the new shape of the destiny direction that you want to go in. Before we jump in and really start to talk about this, Capricorn, I think it's really important that you make sure you have your own natal chart, because no matter if you're listening to me, which I'm glad that you are, thank you for being here, or you are listening to someone else, you are reading a book, unless it's based on your chart, you're getting a very general view of what the month has to offer. And I want you to have the best astrology. And the best astrology is your astrology, which means you've got to have your chart to see where this is actually playing out for you. So if you don't have that, please click in my description box down below. And there's also a video at the end of this horoscope video to show you how to find these in your chart if you don't already know how to do that. Okay, Capricorn, let's jump into this month, because September is a mental and a spiritual turning point for you. The eclipses are lighting up your 3rd and your 9th house axes, so your information axes, pulling your attention to the connection between your everyday thoughts and the words that you're using and the bigger story of your life, right? This is about how the narratives that you tell yourself and the world, whether they're actually aligned with the life that you want or not, is demonstrating how you're living. Now, we're also going to have Saturn, your ruling planet, sliding back into the vibration of Pisces, coming back to that 3rd house where we saw it pop forward before into Aries. So there's this space at the beginning of the month for you, Capricorn, where there is no escaping the call to get disciplined with your voice, with your thinking, and with a message that you have to share. So let's jump in and break these down by the dates. So right here at the beginning of the month on the 1st, we're going to see that Saturn re-entering retrograde style back into the vibration of Pisces. This lights up your 3rd house space. This is all about communication. Now, earlier this year, Saturn stepped into Aries and began to light up your 4th house space. And it was just a bare beginning of challenging your home base, your family dynamics, what you call inner security, right? And so you got a taste of how you're going to be able to create a structure or a shelter or some kind of strong long-term container about that. But first, Saturn's going to slide back into Pisces and revisit any unfinished business you have around communication, around your mindset, around your learning, right? Now, an uncomfortable piece of what you may be reviewing is that you've been speaking on autopilot, right? You're throwing out words to fill in silence. You're making promises you can't keep. You're saying things that society told you to say. You're avoiding conversations you know would shift everything if you just said the thing, right? Or maybe your thinking itself has been really narrow. It's been focused on what's safe rather than what's possible. So this month, where I think you can begin to use this retrograde energy is to start thinking like the strategist that you are, because this is a gift to your energy, right? You might not fully be able to embrace it yet. You might still be one of our Capricorn energies that's growing into that, but you are a strategist. Take the class, take the writing class, enroll in a speaking course. Go to ChatGPT and let it help you create a content calendar if you're doing business, or a daily calendar if you're running your home life. You know, it's a space where I think you can stop guessing about what needs to happen and start articulating your ideas. It's a lot more precise, and that allows you to put a structure and a strategy to it. Because Saturn sliding back for this last review says if you want to influence your life, or if you want to influence the world, wherever you would like your influence to be, beautiful Capricorn, you've got to master your message. What's coming out of your mouth and where is it coming from in your head? On the 2nd, we see Mercury slide into the vibration of Virgo, where it's in home court advantage, brilliantly lighting up this 9th house space. And as Mercury moves here, it lights up your beliefs. Publishing, marketing, broadcasting, places where you're going to go into expansion, higher education. We get bigger, we expand. But here in Virgo, it's sharpening your thinking, but it's thinking about the bigger picture. So you're not all in the nitty-gritty details here. You're reviewing that with Saturn, with that Saturnian energy back here in Pisces. You've got the North Node working over there, pulling you towards a destiny. Instead, now you start the big outline of that book, right? You don't need the chapters. We just need the big outline of the book. We don't need all the words. You're designing that workshop. You're mapping out your academic plan, right? This is about getting clear on where you want to go. We'll create the plan on what makes that real in that 3rd house energy. On the 6th, we see Uranus, who shifted into the vibration of Gemini, lighting up your 6th house space, now turning inwards to take its retrograde into 2026. So your words, your daily work, your health, your routine, the tasks that you take on a daily to do your life, these are all getting a little personal shakeup now. And it's about how you need to restructure your time and your energy, your health goals, something in your daily routine. Now, Uranus got only a few degrees in. So again, this was a fresh start in a fresh world. So you're just getting a look around what's happening in the 6th house and getting a rumbling going over here. And it was to get your attention. Maybe you realize your schedule is running you instead of the other way around, Capricorn, right? Like your schedule is running your behind, and we need to get a little grip on that. Or maybe you have some habits and they've worked for a very long time, because you can have productive habits, right? But now they're really draining your vitality. So here, yet again, you have the opportunity to, first of all, acknowledge it. Acknowledge if something needs a shift, and now to integrate a more flexible work model. Because when we deal with Uranus, you've got to bring the word flexibility to the table. Adopt some more innovative health practices. And it doesn't mean, you need to go drink snail blood in order to be vital, or whatever the new fandangled thing is. But what do you need an innovation in your health practice? Maybe you try a time blocking system, and that helps you create space for creating what you want to create, being in your life, being in your day, but also having a downtime to recover. Whatever this is going to be for you, the shakeup is there. Stay flexible and lean into it, okay? All right, when we get to the 7th, if this all hasn't been exciting so far, when we get to the 7th, we've got a full moon total lunar eclipse happening in Pisces, lighting up that 3rd house space. Now, this is a total eclipse, so this is a full reset. Full reset. This eclipse is closing a chapter in how you've communicated, how you've learned in that area of your life, because the 3rd house rules so much of your voice. This lunation, I think, is asking, are you speaking your truth? Are you speaking fear? What are you speaking, right? So at this eclipse, now likely over the last 6 months, you've been feeling a change to this area of your life anyway, and you will continue to be completely reset and live this area different over the preceding 6 months. You might face the reality that the inner dialogue is critical, it's cynical, it's so self-limiting that it's keeping you small and it's hurting your heart. Or maybe you finally see that the cost of tolerating empty, drama-filled conversations is hurting you. So with this eclipse, the invitation, I think, is to intentionally break old scripts. Leave behind the gossip. Meaningless networking is not for you now. That surface level exchange, that's not for you. You start talking and listening, right? Mutable energies have to practice listening, and this is Pisces, but it's in ways that create depth and direction. We are standing full foot in a new world, and without some kind of depth and direction that speaks to your spirit, I think you're going to end up feeling really lonely. So you have an opportunity to speak the truth here. What do you want? What do you need? What kind of conversation fills your soul cup, right? When we get to the 18th, we're going to see Mercury shift into the vibration of Libra. This will light up your 10th house space. So now your words and your ideas come to the public. We see you. Whether it's at work, in your career, a reputation, something that we know you have, we're going to see you doing. But your career and your reputation, they're ready. They're ready for a little boost, right? You've been working so much on communication and your thinking that we're ready to hear what you have. You know, I tend to talk about this in a business sense because I like it. And yes, you could pitch a new idea. You know, you're pitching it to leadership or to someplace, or you're pitching an application, or you're pitching a marriage proposal. But whatever it is, Capricorn, you're pitching us something new about you, a new idea that you would like to pursue. You're refining your profiles. You're launching a project, maybe something you've been holding back on for a while. This is a time where you get to align your public image and your long-term goals in a way that is much more balanced and can be received in a much more beautiful way. Now, just a day later, Venus is going to move into the vibration of Virgo, lighting up that 9th house space as well. And Venus does not hustle. Venus attracts. Venus attracts. So here, as you're listening to this part of your horoscope, please just let your shoulders drop down with me for just a minute. Venus here sweetens your connections to new people, new places, new perspectives, new philosophies, new ideas. And as you open your mouth and your mind this month and you get clear on what you want to say and you say it, Venus is going to start calling that right on into you. You know, you might meet someone while traveling. And it doesn't mean you have to come to Spain and see me, although I would love that. Maybe you're just at the grocery store by the bananas and you've never been to this grocery store before. And whoa, they say something to you and you're like, tell me more about that. You fall in love with a philosophy or a spiritual practice or a branch of study. Or you find that you have joy in teaching and mentoring other people. And what you've said, they're going, yes, please tell me more, right? Someone meets you at the bananas and they're like, tell me more about that, please, right? Whatever it is, Venus is here making it soft, making it sweet, making it easier to attract in a way that your worldview feels a lot more alive, a lot more inspired, and you're able to receive the goodness that comes with activating this area. On the 21st, we've got a new moon, partial solar eclipse in Virgo. Okay, so this is just a partial. This isn't a full reset. So you'll get a kind of a different view of something that you've been looking at. And again, this is in that 9th house space. Now, Venus is over here attracting the goodness. So let's work fully with this energy, because this eclipse, I think, is a destiny reset in your life direction and in your belief system. It's at a karmic degree, 29 degrees of Virgo. So it is pushing you towards an intentional expansion. But first, it may help you see that you realize, your current vision, it's not really yours. There's still some stuff that needs to get filtered out of there. Perhaps you've been walking a path that's someone else's dream. Or you're holding on to a plan and it's too vague, right? The plan is big. It's 9th house. It's just the big picture. We haven't filled in the details yet. And something else that's just, this is coming to me. So please let me know, Capricorn, if this is you. If it's like you've always been able to sit down and hold the vision of where you want it to go and what you want to create next, and you're having a hard time creating the vision, right? It's almost like you can't get it to form. This is something that you may see here too, because it's bringing that vagueness in, and you can't build from the vague. So over this next 6 months, as you walk with this newness, this reset, I think that you can commit to, first of all, planting a flag in your future, saying, okay, I don't have the full vision, or I know I want to go this way. And you plant that flag in your future. You commit to an educational path. You start a travel plan. You launch a program. You start a new philosophy. You go out in the world with a hell of a lot of courage and a lot of faith that you can bring your authentic expertise to whatever it is that you're doing, your home, your family, your meditation, your spiritual life, helping others, whatever it is. Now, on the 22nd, as we're going to end the month, we've got the sun entering into the vibration of Libra, lighting up the 10th house space. We have got Mars entering into Scorpio, lighting up the 11th house space. So the sun's bringing that light, heat, life, and vitality here into your career and your public life. So again, the sun is shining on you. We see you doing something this month that is changing your reputation in our minds, right? While Mars is bringing in energy to your community section. So you've got community, you've got collaborations. Maybe you're meeting with people more, but they're deep people. It's deep. It's people that you're vulnerable with them. There's a deep connection. There's a shared resource connection here. There's future plans being made. Maybe your network, your friends, an organization, a mastermind group, a friend becomes this source of both motivation and opportunity. But here's the thing. You have to be willing to be the sun here. You have to be a cardinal energy. You have to be willing to take the lead. You already are a cardinal energy, but now you're going to have to behave like a Libra here, okay? So if you're taking on a leadership role, you're going to lead that project. You're going to pitch a new idea to a group, something like that. There's a coming together in the way that we have known your name and the way that it's connected with groupings as we're at the end of the month heading into October. All right, my beautiful Capricorn friends, I think that September asks you again to kind of clear your mental clutter and own your voice. Saturn is here to make you an authority, but only if you remember to take your words really seriously. My beautiful Capricorn friends, please share your journey with me this month. How is it going? How is it unfolding? Leave that in the comment section down below. I love you a ton, and I look forward to seeing you in October. Absolutely beautiful Aquarian friends, and welcome to your horoscope for September of 2025. We're Aquarius this month. This is just tender and beautiful because there's this rewriting of worth and power that you're getting to do on your terms. Now, Pluto is traveling through your sign, so there has been a whole transformation that you've been working yourself into or dying out of since 2023. And now we're here, and I think that this month is going to have you getting radically honest about value and power. Okay, Aquarius, before we jump in, my beautiful friends, please make sure that you have your own individual natal chart, because I want you to have the best astrology. And the best astrology is your astrology, because if you're listening to me, you're listening to one of our other beautiful creators, you're reading a general book, it's all general unless that horoscope was specifically based on your chart. So I want you to have your chart so you can see where these things are actually happening in your particular chart, okay? So click in my description box down below and grab one, go get a free one, whatever you need to do to make sure you can follow. And at the end of this video, I've got another video that shows you how to find these things in your chart if you don't already know how to do that. Okay, Aquarius. So yes, September, the eclipses are landing across your 2nd and 8th house axes. So this is activating these themes around worth, money, intimacy, trust, vulnerability, energy exchange, trust, death. These are concepts that are definitely up and about. But this is much more than the surface level, material level things in your bank account. This is about unspoken contracts that you've made with others who are on this side of the realm, some who are on other sides of a different realm, ones with yourself, and about what you're worth and what you're willing to accept. When the 2nd and the 8th house axis gets lit up, we're talking about the tender and vulnerable acts of giving and receiving. Right? The balance between what's yours, what's shared, whether we trade off, whether something continues to flourish and flow, or something needs to die off. So it's a pretty precious month, I think. Let's jump in and talk about the dates that things are happening. Now, right here at the beginning of the month on the 1st, Saturn is already retrograde, but it's going to re-enter the vibration of Pisces, lighting up your second house space. Earlier this year, we saw Saturn step into Aries and into your third house. So this was just a small dance, just showing you a preview of what is to come, but it was pushing you to refine your voice and your communication. There were a lot of things that would have been coming up around how do you breathe even, right? So now, as Saturn slides back into Pisces, it's asking you to finish the work on that self-worth story. Your relationship with receiving, your relationship with money, your relationship with surrender, with spirituality, and the value that that has in your life. Now, something that I think you're going to get an opportunity to review it. It's like a final pass, right? You may notice that there are patterns of overgiving or saying yes. Some of you who are in business, maybe you're undercharging, and it doesn't reflect your value anymore. But you've been doing it because somewhere deep down, you've been measuring your worth in terms of output instead of the blessing of your being. Now, where I think that there's a lot of hope for this particular retrograde is that you have an opportunity to renegotiate a contract or to break free from a contract that doesn't work anymore. It can't have long-term viability anymore. And sometimes these contracts we have are, with financial institutions or with clients and how we make money, but sometimes they are literally with the universe where we say, okay, I've made peace. I'm ready to surrender this. Let's go where the contract needs to go next, right? Others of you will be very practical. You might raise your rates. You might charge or change how you speak about yourself, how you speak and regard money, right? Either way, Saturn here in this final review is teaching you that value is a boundary, but that you're the one who decides where that boundary is drawn. You get to say, uncle, right? So draw the boundary well. When we get to the 2nd, we're going to see Mercury enter into the vibration of Virgo, lighting up your 8th house space. Now the mind is going to turn inwards. We're going to turn towards shared resources, trust, death, debt, taxes, deep psychological work, astrology, right? This is where we start to see at this point in the month, conversation is going into territory that can be often avoided because it's a little bit deeper. So you might sit down with a partner or a parent and you got to go over the numbers. We've got to just get to the tender, vulnerable numbers. What's the cost of this? What is this going to cost us? Where is the money going, right? Maybe you revisit a loan or someplace that you have debt that you owe. There can be really tender, candid conversations that pull us into the space of vulnerability. Mercury here helps you use your language of discernment and service to untangle what can be very complicated. So lean into that. Virgo wants to be of service here. On the 6th, we've got Uranus, who's recently moved into the vibration of Gemini and lighting up your 5th house space, coming into its retrograde, which will go all the way until 2026. So Uranus is beginning this inward review of your creativity, romance, joy, pleasure, play, release. This is one of your ruling planets. Now, the other one's in retrograde. Saturn's in retrograde, taking you back to review contracts that you've been in, value. Now, your other ruling planet is here going, okay, what have you been doing that you've been creating or you've been trying to be in some way, Aquarius, that's about approval instead of passion? Or what have you been doing that's been running on autopilot? And I do want to say this too, Aquarius, for many of you, because this is the 5th house, there could be really big changes coming for your children. Okay, so be mindful of them this month. I don't care if they're 5 or if they're 55. This could be big changes coming for your children. So just be mindful of that. My greater hope for this particular retrograde is that something that you've been passionate about, something that you've wanted to create, something that you abandoned. For those of you who are looking to date, I hope that this particular retrograde puts you in the space where you perform less and you play more. All right, on the 7th, we've got a full moon total lunar eclipse happening in Pisces. So again, this is back to that second house space, and this is a total lunar eclipse. So it is a severing. You will be totally reset, cut off from something that was here that doesn't make sense anymore. It can be an emotional climax of the month. And for some of you, this could be the emotional climax of the year, right? Your self-worth, your money sector, when these two areas get pinged on, how we receive, this can be really vulnerable. But I do think that something you've been holding on to is ready to be released. And who better to take you to release than Pisces, who lives between both worlds? Because when you surrender, you always receive, right? So the uncomfortable space here is that you might be facing a reality that a current receiving structure in your life, whether it be how you receive money, how you earn, how you receive behavior from other people, the way you allow yourself to be soft, whatever it is, it's keeping you small, and that tolerating it is going to keep you in a barely enough vibration if you keep going down that road. And you've been doing it for far too long. That's why it may be uncomfortable to see it coming up. However, the reset that is offered to you is an invitation to walk away from something that's draining you. Close the chapter on some kind of financial or energetic tie that doesn't serve you anymore. Change your money mindset. Let somebody take you to another direction. Begin to build your stability from a place, Aquarius, of enoughness, not from scarcity. On the 18th, we've got Mercury now sliding into Libra, lighting up this 9th house space. So your thinking is expanding and you're getting into the big picture vision, right? Travel, publishing, marketing, broadcasting, higher education, spiritual growth, philosophy, travel. Yes, all the travel. So during this transit, you could find yourself, maybe you're signing up for that certification plan. Maybe you're going to do some international travel, or you've got an idea you want to pitch or you want to teach, but you want to widen your audience and your expansion out in some way at this time. I love it. This is an opportunity for your voice to become a bridge to something bigger that you would like to have in your experience. When we get to the 19th, Venus is going to now shine into the Virgo energy. And please remember, Venus is an attracting energy, not a hustle hard energy. So as Venus comes into this 8th house space of your shared resources, I like to call it the intimacy and the assets sector. Ooh, that's like a lot to say. But this is a space where the intimacy and the vulnerability gets met with grace and harmony. You can start to receive unexpected softness here, because there's a softness now in places that felt tense or vulnerable or fearful. You might find yourself receiving the service, Virgo, of unexpected financial help. This is the 8th house. Maybe you're getting an inheritance or a life insurance or a tax refund. You can enjoy some smoothness in your partnership when it comes to talks of money or trust or things that are very, very vulnerable. And for those friends out there who are grieving, I encourage you, whatever the grief is, to go to your Venus and allow yourself to be held in grace while you process. When we get to the 21st, we've got the new moon partial solar eclipse here in Virgo in that 8th house space. Now, this is a karmic reset moment because this eclipse is happening at 29 degrees of Virgo. It is the totality of everything that this energy has needed to really learn. And this is happening in that 8th house space. So again, if you realize that you stayed financially or emotionally tied to something or someone that was just out of fear or guilt, or that you've avoided going to that next level of vulnerability and trust because maybe a past wound or grief has kept you in that space, this is an opportunity for you over this next 6 months to establish a clearer financial boundary, right? Go, no,
I need to be in spaces where I let myself feel supported in a way that feels safe and mutual so that I can open up to this vulnerability, so that I can grieve out what's risen to the surface, and so that I can expand and go to my depth here. On the 22nd, as we're going to end this month, we see the sun entering into the vibration of Libra, and that's 9th house space, and Mars is going to enter into Scorpio in the 10th house space. Now, the sun lighting up that 9th house space is bringing light, heat, life, and vitality. You're motivated in this area, while Mars is giving you like a little power pack in your career and your reputation and your public image. So in some way, we may see your name up in lights, right? We see your name in the newspaper. We see your name online, something like that. Maybe you're presenting your expertise to someone who's quite influential. And that Mars is making you go, yep, I'm going to take on a leadership role. Or, yep, I'm the one who did this. This is about me, right? Whatever it is, I think that there's this space at the end of the month to align not just your career, but your reputation, who you want to be next, with a philosophy that you genuinely believe in. Because the philosophies we believe in, we're living our lives based off of those philosophies. So is this who you want to be? This is a high visibility and high energy transit. So I would just encourage you, Aquarius, to use it well. All right, my beautiful Aquarian friends, September is a month about reclamation. It's reclamation and rebalancing a lot of exchanges that you have, both in money and energy. And I think that the most beautiful part is that you get to decide what's fair. You get to decide what's fair this time. Aquarius, I hope you will share your month with me. I hope you have a glorious month. Let me know how it's going in the comment section down below. Pisces friends, and welcome to your horoscope for September of 2025. And Pisces, if I had to pick a sign to say, hey, in September, you're going to be really busy, it's you. It is definitely you. There's a lot of redefinition of yourself, rebalancing of things in your relationships going on. So September, Pisces, for you, I think is deeply personal. Now, the eclipses, of course, are lighting up your self and others axes, that 1st and 7th house. So it's asking you kind of these two defining questions that you've been working on all year anyways. Who are you now? And who do you want beside you for the next chapter of your life? Those are really important questions, I think. Now, Saturn is also going to retrograde back into your sign. And then we've got the full moon total lunar eclipse also happening in there as well. So I think this is where you are going to see yourself and your relationships just really radically different over this next 6 months. And it's not just about breakups and beginnings. It is more about the stripping away of the versions of you that were in survival mode, in approval mode, in peacekeeping mode, and now you're getting to replace them with something more intentional like self-respect and presence. I love this. So Pisces, let's jump in and see what September has to offer. Right at the beginning of the month on the 1st, we see Saturn that is already retrograde sliding back into your sign, into your 1st house. Now, earlier this year, we saw Saturn move into Aries and start to light up your 2nd house, putting a spotlight on your money, your income, your self-esteem, your value, your material security. Now, as it slides back into Pisces, it's bringing you face to face with some unfinished work you have around your identity, maybe some boundaries, some self-respect that you need to tighten up so that as it comes back into Aries, you can demand your value with clarity, right? But there's some uncomfortable truths that we maybe realized while we creeped into that Aries territory. And one of them can be that you realize you've been letting other people's expectations of you shape you. Saying yes when you meant no. Softening your beautiful edges so that other people feel more comfortable, staying quiet because you don't want to have conflict, but then you feel disrespected. It can be really sobering to see where you've self-abandoned. But Saturn did a lot of work in your sign, so this is more like it's coming back for some touch-ups so that you get it really right. So I think that by the end of this retrograde, and going through it, what you're really doing is you're reclaiming your own authority, right? Start dressing, start speaking, start moving through life in a way that feels like you now, which also means that what are the boundaries that you now has? Not boundaries to push people away,
but to protect your peace. This version's of you's peace, right? So Saturn is here like your personal trainer for self-respect. And I think you're going to thank Saturn later. Now, when we get to the second, we see Mercury moving into Virgo, so lighting up that 7th house space for you. Your focus is going to shift, of course, to the partnerships, contracts, one-on-one conscious chosen relationships and collaborations. Now, we've also had the South Node over here pulling out things that don't need to be here anymore. So Mercury being very comfortable and in domicile in Virgo here is about bringing clarity. It's about bringing discernment, strategy, and precision here. So there could be an agreement that has come back to your table and you're ready to renegotiate it. Literally, there could be a contract where you're like, yeah, I wasn't quite ready to take that on before, but now I'm ready to engage it. You could be having a heart-to-heart conversation about something that you'd been avoiding for months. And now you're ready to engage that conversation. Maybe you're brainstorming with a mastermind group or a partner or someone that you share a goal with to move forward. The way that you communicate now with Mercury here in Virgo in the 7th house for you, I think can really determine the next chapter that happens for a very significant relationship in your life. On the 6th, we're going to see that Uranus, who's moved into Gemini, lighting up that 4th house space for you, now taking its retrograde into 2026. So Uranus is beginning to shift inward. Where it came forward before, it was bringing our attention to innovations that needed to happen or shifts in home, family, real estate, property, things with your parents, emotional foundations, your ideas of security. These all have been getting shaken, not stirred, friend, okay? And so your attention has been gotten. Now, what can we see as we're going back over these early degrees that Uranus brought your attention to? First of all, you may see how your current living situation or setup, whether it's inherited from your family or a family belief even, it's become quite limiting to your freedom, right? That story doesn't work anymore. Sometimes the comfort zone is really just a cage with nice curtains. And so you may be taking a look at that. Now, like I said, this retrograde is going to take us into the energy of 2026. So hopefully this is a space for you to stay flexible and reimagine your home environment so it feels lighter, it feels freer. You know, dismantle some of these emotional patterns that have been passed down, some through generations, some that you adopted because they were protective mechanisms. You know, you may even consider, honestly, some of you, a move. You're like, I need to move. I'm ready to literally leave this continent and go to another one. Some of you, it's just going to be some kind of renovation or redecoration that feels like it reflects who you are now, not the you from 5 years ago. Okay. When we get to the 7th, we've got the full moon lunar eclipse happening in your sign. And this is a total lunar eclipse. That's important to note because it is a complete reset. Complete and utter reset. This is your personal culmination moment beginning. Something about the identity that you've been carrying is ready to be released. And an eclipse in the 1st house can feel raw because they take away the mask. Right? So you may realize where you've been performing a version of yourself and that's kept these relationships running smoothly and that's been what it's been. But now it's at the cost of your authenticity and the cost of hearing your own spirit. So this eclipse over the next 6 months as you're working it through is first of all going to bring destined relationships in your life to help you sort this out. But I think it gives you a space to initiate a very visible change about yourself, your style, your approach, your attitude, your cadence. Whatever you're changing that we can see, it announces your evolution. We see it. You're like, no, new year, new me. Okay. Well, you don't even need to wait till January. Either way, you're going to stop living so much for other people's comfort, I think, and start living for your own alignment. And I can't wait to see what that looks like and feels like on you as you continue to grow into it. On the 18th, now Mercury is shifting into the vibration of Libra, lighting up your 8th house space. So our minds are turning towards what I call the intimacy and assets sector. We have shared resources. We have deeper truths, death, debt, taxes. These all come up in this 8th house area. Astrology belongs in there as well. Sex belongs in that house. So these things are on your mind. And this is a moment for honest, sometimes uncomfortable conversations about these areas: trust, sex, vulnerability, money, right? Death, debt, taxes. So you might be talking about different financial transactions or relationships that you'd like to enter, or maybe you're already in one with a partner or something needs to be negotiated. The market has been interesting, so maybe you're negotiating some kind of shared investment or something like that, or a collaboration. Maybe you're able to finally grieve and speak about an emotional wound that you've been keeping to yourself, or it's represented itself and now you're ready to process it in a different way. The point is that Mercury is here to give you the words to restore balance in a place that's maybe been unspoken. On the 19th, Venus is going to enter into Virgo, now that 7th house space. Now, Venus here is bringing that grace and that harmony to your relationships, your collaborations, all of that. But it is an attracting energy. Venus is not a hustle hard energy. You are attracting ease into this area. So if in your conscious chosen one-on-one relationships or a tough negotiation or a tough court case, it's needed to turn the volume down and the temperature down a little bit, Venus can do that. I also think that Venus in the 7th house is such a beautiful transit for a repair in some kind of partnership. But it's going to be a repair done like a Virgo through acts of service. Or maybe you meet someone through work, or you find out that a connection that you already have becomes more cooperative in some way because it wants to be more discerning and of service. This is also a really sweet time to just collaborate. Collaborate creatively with someone, right? Whose skills out there complement yours? Because when we partner in the 7th house, it's so that we can go to the next level. I'm partnering with you to fulfill something that I want to fulfill. So whose skills are in complement to yours, and enjoy attracting that into you, and then receive it. You have to be a Venusian. Receive what is coming to you. On the 21st, we've got a new moon partial solar eclipse happening in Virgo in that 7th house. So probably help some things out, especially because Pisces, this is a relationship reset and it's a karmic kind, right? At fated 29 degrees of Virgo, you are seeing something at its great end. It could be very intense, but it is also its freshest beginning. You may see that some relationships in your life were built on avoidance. They were built on a power imbalance. They were built on projection. They were built on, if I do this, I'll look perfect, right? Instead of service, but keeping them as they are would mean staying small and dishonest to yourself. So I think that where we can lean into where this work is taking us here is to align with a partner in service, whether it be romance, business, or otherwise, right? You're aligning there with that partnership that supports your growth, and you get to mutually support theirs as well. You're setting clearer, healthier terms for how you're going to partner and collaborate. You let go of connections that are only thriving when you're the one self-sacrificing, right? That is not it. So I think we get to see, as this new moon peeks itself through over the next 6 months, this new version of you that you are outwardly presenting to us is showing up with some different boundaries, some different levels of engagement that are going to change your life and the lives of others around you. Now, before we're going to end up this month, on the 22nd, we see the sun entering into the vibration of Libra, lighting up that 8th house space, and Mars is going to enter into Scorpio into the 9th house space. Okay. As we see the sun come into the 8th, it's bringing light, heat, life, and vitality. So you're motivated in this area, right? The sun illuminates this 8th house, those deep transformation, those shared power, trust, resources. While Mars is charging up that 9th house space of beliefs, travel, higher education, publishing, marketing, broadcasting. We're going big. Mars wants to go big or go home over here. So this 8th, 9th house conversation, you might be honestly investing in some kind of shared resource or joint project. And the plan is to have it be bigger, right? You're doing it in a way that's bigger. Or maybe you're planning a trip and it's going to be bigger than just you, or you're taking a course that really challenges your worldview, it really challenges a philosophy or a spiritual belief that you have had, and it demands an ultimate amount of faith for you. It's a powerful time for expanding your perspectives, but also to rebalance with the sun here, because we have to put those evolving beliefs into action. So where you're expanding and learning something else more deeply, where do we see it living in action in your life? All right, Pisces, it is a busy month for you. I think there's a lot going on, right? But it is a month that I think asks you to continue to get not radically honest, just honest. We just need regular honest, not the radical. It doesn't, just regular honest about who you are now, who you're becoming, and who you want to share your life with, because some relationships are going to evolve in this next 6 months and others are going to fade. Some are going to be chopped out. Okay. All right, my absolutely brilliant Pisces friends, I love you a ton. Please share your journey with me in the comment section down below. Let me know how September's going. I love you, and I will see you in October.